Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Neighbor trespasses on my property and threatens to post a story about me on Reddit. I'm posting this because I was told I'd end up on Reddit, and my kids told me this is likely what the person meant. So I live in an area that's seeing a lot of new builds. My husband and I have the last large lot on our street, lived here for 20 plus years. Probably 800 people lived here when we bought our house, now it's over 10,000 people. It's about 1.5 acres. We installed a big play area a few years ago for our nieces, nephews, and eventual grandkids. It's on the opposite side of our lot, pretty far away from the house. There's a path that goes from our second driveway. It's landscaped, and we purchased it from a contractor who is replacing some other park, so I can see how people mistake it as a town park. This happens often that people stop to play, and I usually don't care. But we don't encourage it, as we have 2 giant dogs who will bark at strangers who come in the yard. I put up some blatant signs that say private property and beware of dog. Right now it's still cold here. It's an early Friday morning, and I open the door to let the dogs out. They stay in the yard and ignore anything outside the yard. The dogs start barking, I hear yelling. I run outside. There's a couple and their kid playing on the playground. I call the dogs back and put them in the house. I go over to apologize and let them know it's not a public park. As soon as I get within earshot, the mom starts yelling, "What is wrong with you? We're calling animal control on you. Who lets their dogs just run around a park? Get a fence." I hate confrontation, so I get a bit shaky. I tell her it's not a park, it's my yard. She says, "Get out of here. Get away from us." I point to the signs and tell her again that it's not a park, it's our yard, and they need to leave. She starts going off about how it's illegal to leave a play area open. It isn't. And it's illegal to let your dogs off leash in this neighborhood. It isn't. There are almost no bylaws here yet. I tell them again to just leave and that they weren't allowed to be on our property. My dogs are in the big window barking, and her husband is screaming that I should train my dogs before they hurt someone. They're bred to guard and detain intruders. Historically, we don't train them as guard dogs. This upset me more than anything because I'm an irrational animal lover. I called the police. When they saw I was on the phone with the cops, they started shouting about me being a Karen and started getting in their car. Their poor kid was crying, and the woman said, "Watch what happens when you end up on Reddit and we tell people where you live." So here you go, Reddit. My kids checked and didn't find anything about it here, so I'll post it first, and I hope she does post something. I'm sorry my dog scared them, but the screaming and threatening was so over the top and honestly deranged. My kids want me to end this by asking if I'm the jerk because I'm old and I want people to get off my lawn. Everyone is saying install a fence, but that would cost $15,000. I've just contacted a company about getting a gate for our second driveway. Also, where we live, you can't sue someone if they're trespassing on your private property. Suing people isn't something people can easily do here, and usually it's not for any big settlement. Before you comment about attractive nuisance law, it doesn't exist here. I don't want to say where I am, but it isn't the US or anywhere close. Not the jerk. If it's your property, it's your property. That woman was obnoxious, and it's her fault that her kid was crying. I would install a privacy fence and lock it. OP. I would love to install a fence, but it would cost upwards of $15,000. I think after this, we'll at least get a gate for the second driveway. It doesn't have to be a pretty fence. You could do the equivalent of a deer fence for a couple of hundred. A bunch of metal fencing poles you simply hammer into the ground, and a roll of wire garden or deer fencing you unroll and tie to the metal poles. Then you can put signs on the fencing. Private property, not a public park. Am I the jerk for throwing out my husband's dinner after he went to eat at his mom's house? My mother-in-law calls every night to ask what we're having for dinner. Then she brags about what she's cooking to make me look bad, especially if we're getting takeout. I used to care, but not anymore. But my husband would ask me to make dinner only for him to go eat the dinner his mom makes at her home, which is 10 minutes away, and using the "that's my favorite meal" excuse. Yesterday, I wanted to surprise him by cooking one of his favorite meals, and although I was busy, I took time off work to cook. I even went grocery shopping to get what I needed. Later, as I was setting the table, his mom called. I told him he didn't have to answer, but he did. Like usual, she asked what we were having, but acted surprised that I cooked this meal. She then went on to tell him that she cooked X meal and told him to come over. He said okay, which shocked me. I said, seriously? As he started dressing up, getting ready to leave. He told me, no offense, but this meal that his mom cooked was even more of a favorite one than the one I cooked, and grabbed his keys and he left. I felt awful. I took his plate and threw it out, then ate my portion. As I was about to put the plate in the dishwasher, he got home looking angry, saying his mom lied about cooking that favorite meal and used it as an excuse to force him to eat dinner with her. I was shocked, but he sat down telling me to go ahead and reheat dinner. I told him no dinner after he abandoned it. I threw it out. He said, what? And I told him he disrespected my time and effort and chose to go eat with his mom instead. He began yelling at me, asking if I really did that, then called me petty and horrible, then went upstairs saying what I did was 100 times worse than what his mom did. I definitely feel like I let my anger and frustration get the best of me, but it really felt unbearable having to live like this for so long. By the way, I'm 26 and he's 28. ETA, to make one thing clear, and that's the fact that my husband only does this when it comes to food. He lived with his mom, attended community college, and loved and still loves her food and is used to it. She gave me recipes to make, and I try to do that, but he keeps switching homes just to eat what he feels like. Not the jerk. Why in the world is he telling you to go eat dinner? Did a T-Rex attack him and eat his arms on the way back from his mom's? Did he try to catch a piano falling from the sky, which broke his fingers? Did he anger a forest fairy and she cursed him and now he has 2 sets of legs instead of hands? Or is that him waving a huge red flag? These are all good theories, but have you considered that her husband may actually be a stray cat enchanted to appear human? That would explain why he wanders from house to house asking to be fed and then picks and chooses from what's offered. Not the jerk. Your husband can either commit to eating at home with you, tell you well before dinner that he's eating with his mom, or he can make his own meals. Until he starts regularly making a choice to be home or go with enough time for you to plan and prep your cooking, cook enough for only you. He's on his own. ETA. I wasn't going to say because I feel it's obvious, but I can't help myself. This is much larger of an issue than dinner time. There's a profound lack of respect in your relationship. Husband needs to snip the apron strings at the very least, but really needs to spend some serious time thinking about what a marriage and partnership actually means. Not the jerk, stop cooking for him. Tell him how you felt when you made the effort to prepare a nice meal and he decided to eat at mom's. If he continues to do it, you won't cool. I also suggest a compromise. Pick 2 nights a week that he eats with his mom. If she calls on other nights at the last minute, he can gracefully decline. Sorry, my wife has dinner taken care of. I'll see you on Thursday. If she particularly wants to have him there for a certain holiday or anniversary, she should ask well before that day arrives. You should consider asking her doctor to evaluate her for dementia because her behavior is weird. My aunt passed of Alzheimer's last week, but she did something similar. She would call and lie to get attention. I haven't seen anyone all day. There's no food in the house. None of this was true. She lived in a mobile home next to her daughter. Her 16-year-old grandkid stayed over every night in case she needed assistance at night. The family brought her food regularly. She had meals on wheels for lunch, and her daughter made breakfast every morning and sent dinner. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, but if she was left alone for 10 minutes, she whipped out her phone and started making these crisis calls. By the time we arrived, she forgot she had called. Your mother-in-law should be evaluated for a neurological or mental illness. Her behavior may not be able to be changed, but there are treatments available. Karen makes a fuss over my plane seat, then insists that I pay for her to move. So this happened back in January of 2018, so my memory may be a bit fuzzy. So I'm a 23-year-old man who usually visits my parents and siblings for Christmas and New Year's because that's the only time I can see them. So I'm in the airport waiting to board my flight as I see a woman getting angry because her kids were tired and wanted to get on the plane. I think nothing of it and hope she's not sat near me. No, she was at my gate. As I was approaching my seat, an aisle seat in business class because I knew it would be smarter than asking people to stand up so I can get to the bathroom. When I get to my seat, I see one mother and 2 kids, one in my seat. I tell the mother that's my seat. She's visibly upset at that statement and snaps back. No, it's not, jerk. Me, not wanting to have a fight on the plane, I grab the attention of the flight attendant and I show her my boarding pass, so the flight attendant asks her to move from my seat politely. And being asked to move set off the Karen in a raised voice. "This is my seat. I paid for it, so buzz off." The flight attendant, still being polite, asks to see the boarding passes to check the seats. The entitled mother pulls 2 out for the seats next to mine. The flight attendant, slightly less kind, says, "Ma'am, these are only 2 boarding passes. Where's the 3rd one?" The mother, thinking she's smart, says, "I must have dropped the 3rd one, so I can't give it to you." So this causes me to butt into the conversation and say that I have the boarding pass for that seat because it's my seat. You should have seen the look on her face, because she then shouts out, "Give me my boarding pass, you jerk!" I'm confused why she's so delusional at this point, because it's obviously my ticket since I bought it. The next part was back and forth arguing, which I can barely remember, but from what I do remember, it was the flight attendant saying that I clearly paid for this seat as it had my name on the boarding pass, and her arguing for a few more minutes before stopping grinning, and she said, "Well, if you want me to move so bad, how about you pay to upgrade me and my kids to 1st class?" I responded by saying, "Miss, I only have a business class seat because I do a trip like this once a year, so I tend to be comfortable during a flight, and I don't have the funds for 3 first-class tickets." The flight attendant then says to the Karen, "Either you or one of your kids will have to move, or else we will have to remove you from the flight." Then, without holding back, she screeches, "If I leave, he's going to hurt them." Me and the flight attendant are physically taken aback by hearing this. After that, I stopped trying to be nice and responded, "Get out of my seat and never make those claims again, you self-centered jerk." The flight attendant tries to calm me down and calls for security. In the end, the Karen and her kids were escorted off the plane, and I got a row to myself. I forgot about it until the other day, so I decided to post it here after getting into listening to these stories on YouTube. Anyways, thanks for reading my story. Am I the jerk for my reasons of no +1s at my wedding, causing several people not to attend? I'm getting married, and like every other bride, I too have certain rules I want for my wedding to go smoothly. One of them is the no +1s rule. Only people named in the invitation are invited. The criteria I have for people who will get to bring their partners are: 1. Both me and my fiancé know of your partner and have met them. If I know your partner and my fiancé doesn't, that disqualifies them and vice versa. 2. If I'd personally go to dinner with you and your partner. 3. If I'd invite your partner as a separate person anyway, and not just because they're your partner. 4. If your partner is also a friend of mine. Those who meet that criteria get to bring their partners. If they don't, then they don't get to bring them. Simple. That also excludes long-term relationships, engaged couples, and married couples as well. We know it might seem harsh, but those are the rules we've decided to set so we can be more comfortable. It has nothing to do with budget or venue capacity, purely our choice. Several people have denied the invitation to our wedding due to these rules. One of them is also my cousin. My cousin has been engaged to this girl for 1 year now, and he was upset we didn't include her. The reason she was excluded was because my fiancé hasn't met her, and she's not a person I'd personally be friends with either. I told my cousin how heartbroken I am that he will not come to the wedding due to this, and I expressed my distaste for the fact that he can't be away from his fiancé for a few hours to honor me and my fiancé. Couples don't have to be together the whole time. Then he basically told me I'm being extremely disrespectful and a huge jerk. I asked him to explain, and he said word for word, "Let me get this clear. You want me to come to honor you to your wedding, honor your love story and all that, but you can't respect me enough to invite my fiancé? I can be without my fiancé for several hours. Heck, we even spend days apart in vacations with our own separate friend group sometimes. What bothers me is not having to be away from my fiancé for a few hours, but the fact that you excluded her for those reasons." I told him those are my rules, take it or leave it. He says he finds my rules extremely disrespectful, but since it's my wedding, he has no say in it. I told him good, and to stop BSing me then, and show his support and respect by attending. He said that while he respects my extremely exclusive and disrespectful rules, I'm a fool to believe that he will care more about valuing my wedding over his fiancé. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk for guilt-tripping your cousin and anyone else you try to pull this crap with. Your wedding, your rules, but people are allowed to not attend for not liking your rules. Get over it. Only OP appears to be able to have rules. The cousin's rule is to not attend weddings where he can't bring his fiancé, which I find to be totally reasonable. OP doesn't believe others are allowed to be upset with her rules, but she is allowed to be upset with others' rules. Look, for the millionth time, weddings aren't just for the couple. They are community affairs. They're celebrations of marriage and coupling itself, not just this particular marriage. No one should come to a wedding who doesn't support that particular marriage, but also who doesn't support marriage and the kind of family building marriage represents in general. But there's a reverse logic as well. Attendance and invitations must also respect coupling and marriage and the family building created by unrelated people who come together to form a new family, and the family building created by unrelated people who come together to form a new family. If you forefront the particular couple's desire above the institution of coupledom or marriage itself, then why are you having a traditional wedding? You could go in front of a clerk at the city hall instead, or dance under the moon and have a couple's mud bath accompanied by a drum circle. OP wants the benefit of all the traditions without sharing that benefit around, and you can't get without giving. You're the jerk. I'm really confused by this mentality of, it's your wedding, do whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously yes. If you have financial constraints and the like, don't go crazy. No one is expecting you to have insane food, venue, and music, etc. if you can't afford it. But excluding long-term couples, especially those already married and those of your family members, is really weird. I wasn't invited to a wedding with my partner this spring, and it really hurt. It feels slightly invalidating, but I still sucked it up because it's someone else's wedding. Weddings are really community affairs. You're bringing together your community of people. If you're willing to invite one half because they're in your community, so in this case the cousin, then why are you excluding their other half, who is by extension part of your community? So in this case, the cousin's soon-to-be spouse. Especially with family. If I was cousin's fiancé, then post-marriage, this would probably really affect my relationship with OP. It would change how I'd view them. It's so weird to me why people go so far to exclude people. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know. Cancel a land lease and hope to make a windfall? Hope you like a lot of dirt. Let me preface this by noting that this revenge was not my doing, at least not exactly. It happened back in the 90s when I was in high school and centered around the type of school I attended. So in case you weren't aware, it's very common in agricultural communities to have what are known as farmer schools. That's not a technical term, but more just something easy to define them. The schools are generally organized by the local farmers, and while you still study the various courses needed to get into college, you also study farming technology courses and get credit hours for work study, i.e. working on one or more farms. The area I lived in was surrounded by a number of large farms which grew cotton primarily. So during the year, we'd spend time out in the field, both tilling, planting, and harvesting. One of the farms near the school was this 1,000-acre spread that, like the others, grew mostly cotton, though sometimes they rotated to soybeans or silage, basically corn, but you don't harvest it. This farm had a long partnership with the school, so the students provided near free labor for the farmer. The farmer leased this property from some out-of-state owner and paid them a portion of the revenue from the harvest. Imagine my surprise then, when I and many of my classmates arrived at the farm to do our work study, and the farmers instructed some to crew the sprayers and start spraying herbicide on the fields, while others, myself included, were to take tractors and discs and plow everything under. The farmer wanted every square inch of the fields returned to just dirt. We were shocked, to say the least, but after some discussion, we set to work. It took us the better part of a weekend to do so, and when we were done, the field was in a beautiful, if barren, state. The farmer thanked each of us personally and paid us about $500 each, quite the sum for a 90s high school senior. We returned to the school, told our headmaster that the contract was completed, and he informed us that the farmer would no longer be working with the school, and we'd be sent to one of the other, larger farms for the rest of the year and our work study. It was probably 2 or 3 months later before words started going around about why we had been instructed to destroy the crop. Granted, these were just rumors, but based on how things turned out for the farmer, I suspect there's some truth to it. So apparently, the landowner had decided that he was going to not renew the lease the farmer had on the land. This lease renewal just so happened to fall a few weeks before harvest season would start. Given that the average cotton farm earns about $1,500 per acre, a 1,000-acre farm would easily net the owner $1.5 million, about $500,000 of that being pure profit. I don't know what the farmer's lease was, but it stands to reason that it wasn't anywhere near that. So this landowner had figured out a neat little trick. Let the farmer get a good crop planted and then refuse to renew the lease. The farmer would leave the plants in the field and the landowner would just need to pay some contractors to come harvest it and they'd earn a profit. Since at the time the farmer's lease wasn't yet up, he decided to prevent that from happening. His act of revenge against the owner was to prevent them from cashing in on their hard work. Sure, it destroyed his farm, and he had to sell off most everything he owned to buy some property for himself, but he had proved a point. The owner did try to sue the farmer, though he, the owner, really didn't have a leg to stand on, or so I was told. I think the court ruled that since the farmer was still under the lease when he had the land tilled under, then it was his property to do with as he wished, and thus the landowner couldn't tell him what to do with his property. I learned a rather valuable lesson from that man, beyond what I learned about farming. That lesson was, never ever cross someone with nothing to lose. Edit. Since it was brought up in the comments, let me add some details here. Cotton is one of the few crops which leave a negative nutrient value in the soil, meaning that after harvest, even if you till the dead plants under, or even if you till them prior to harvest, you won't have as much nutrients as you started with. That's why farmers will plant another crop, usually winter wheat, in place, and then till it under rather than harvesting it. This is something commonly called a green manure, but it works to put nutrients that the cotton pulled out of the soil back into it. While the ground wouldn't have been completely dead or sterile, any crop planted on that tract of land without further treatment of the soil wouldn't have produced the same acre per acre yield that a comparable crop would have had he gone to harvest and planted the secondary crop, which means that the landowner would either have to plant the green manure and spend money that way or pay by the ton to use artificial fertilizer. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay for my father's medical bills? I'm female, 29. My parents divorced when I was about 10 years old, and I have had no contact with my father after a year because he made the choice to prioritize his new family, stepson, who's 33, and eventually his kids with his new wife over my brother and I. No visitation after he got remarried at all. When we called to ask when he was going to visit us, he would just say that he was busy. Before the divorce, I was literally a daddy's girl, his beloved golden child, no joke. I thought my father was the best, and I wanted to marry a man like him when I grew up. So the fact that he just dropped my brother and me off has caused a deep-seated wound deep in my heart, which I will never ever forgive him for causing. He never paid child support, so my mother had to support my brother and I as a single parent. She decided not to take him to court as she never wanted anything to do with him again. Parents had 50-50 custody. However, 18 years is a long time, and thanks to my mother's love and care for us, I've already forgotten about him and moved on with my life. Same goes for my brother. We have both grown up to live comfortably in our lives, take care of our mother, and love her to no end. The story is that this morning, his stepson, who's 33, contacted me via Facebook and said he wanted to talk to me regarding our father. And I was confused at first, and then remembered that, yes, I had someone like that in my life. He told me that our father has a medical condition and treatment cost a lot, sent together with screenshot of his medical reports, and it would be nice if we could pay his bills, and also that my father wanted to speak to my brother and I. I told him that that man lost his right to be my father when he decided not to have any contact with us, and also that his father's medical bills are none of my concern, so as his kids, you shouldn't go around harassing random people for money. Also, all those years of unpaid child support could be used to cover his medical expenses. After which he called me a vengeful and heartless jerk, to which I just replied with a smiling emoji and blocked him. I talked to my mom about this, and she said while I have the right to be angry with him, he is still my father and is unwell, so I could help them out a bit. I told her, no way am I going to pay for his bills. He has kids to pay for it, so let them settle it. He made his bed, now let him sleep in it. Was I the jerk here? Nope, not the jerk at all. Regardless, your father flat out discarded you, and as far as you know, has never made any attempt to see you or talk to you in 18 years. No way. On a separate note, your mother is a bit of a jerk for not pursuing child support. It's not for her, it's for you and your brother. And she wants you to contribute? Nope, she wanted nothing to do with him. Wouldn't even let any of his money go to supporting your upbringing, so you can do the same. Not the jerk. Also, the fact that the dad himself didn't have the courage to contact her first, and how tacky to contact someone out of the blue after more than 18 years and ask for money along with pictures of the bills. That man made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. Entitled Mom ruins my most prized possession. A small bit of information about me and some backstory. I'm 14 and have autism. I'm an amateur coin and Hot Wheels collector and enjoy collecting Hot Wheels and coins of small/moderate value. I've got exactly 41 coins that I've collected, ranging in price anywhere from $30 to $400. My crown jewel of this collection is my Flying Eagle penny, Flying Eagle cent, which I have in its own separate coin case as opposed to all of the rest which are in a picture frame. This coin is my prized possession. It's valued at around $1,000 to $1,500 so on the low end price point because of its condition. The story starts around December of 2020. My auntie and her 3 kids came over to our rather stuffy trailer as they needed somewhere to stay while passing through our city. Now, I don't like anybody being in my room where my stuff is when I can't see them, but I'm more than happy to let them in when I'm in with them. My little cousin, 8, the same one who broke my original NES, to lightly put it, is a jerk. She's never ever had one day where she wasn't treated like royalty. Now, this behavior would be tolerated if she was 2 years old, but she's 8, so I don't put up with it. She knocks on my door asking to come in, and I agree. From now on, I'll call her Entitled Cousin. Entitled Cousin. Hey, OP, can I come in? Me. Yes, thanks for asking. She comes inside the room and sits on my bed, looking at my wall of Hot Wheels. Entitled Cousin. Those are so cool. Where did you get them? Me. Oh, I usually just buy them at the Hot Wheels store. They're pretty cheap. Can I please have one? Now, I'm a generous person and have some Hot Wheels I play with, so I had gave her one. It was a basic Toyota-looking one. But I wanted one of those. Points to the ones in the box on my wall. Me. Sorry, but I don't give those away. She cuts me off. But you aren't playing with them. They're still in the boxes. Me. Yes, but I like them in their boxes. I keep them in their boxes because I like them to be displayed. I want that one. She points to my Stars and Stripes 64 Pontiac GTO. Me. I'm sorry, but I won't give it away. Now please leave my room. I start nudging her out of my room before closing the door. It was relatively late, around 9:50 p.m. when they arrived, and they had inflated the blow-up mattress we had for them to sleep on, as they would be leaving the next day, so I decided to go to bed, as I had an online class tomorrow at 9 a.m. Cue the next day. I wake up around 7 minutes before my class starts and rush to my laptop, being around 2 minutes late for the class. They usually last an hour or two. 30 minutes of the teacher talking, and another 30 or an hour of work. Everyone in the house was awake at this time. The class period had ended, so I was working on the stuff for the last few days. My mom had told me she was going out with 2 of the 3 kids and that Entitled Aunt would be here because she didn't want to go, and neither did Entitled Cousin. I was fine with this. Another hour goes by, and then Entitled Cousin goes into my room. Me. Hey, Entitled Cousin. Entitled Cousin, looking at my coins. Wow, that's a lot of money. Now, I'm happy whenever anyone shows interest in my coin collection. Me. Oh, yeah, I collect coins just like my Hot Wheels. Just like the Hot Wheels, look with your eyes, please. Boss music. Entitled Aunt walks in. Oh, why can't she hold them? Me. They're in a picture frame. Entitled Aunt walks close enough to see all of the coins. Well, this one isn't, she said while picking up the Flying Eagle penny. It was in the case. I instantly go on edge. Me. Oh yeah, but I don't like people touching it. Entitled Cousin. Mommy, can I see it? She holds her arms out like a little toddler. Me. Slightly panicked but trying to be nice. Yes, you can. Just please don't open it. Why can't we open the case? You obviously don't take good care of them anyway. Look how dirty they are. At this point, I'm full on, how do I stop this without escalating it mode. Me. You really shouldn't clean rare coins. It devalues the coin. Entitled Aunt starts to open the case. You're obviously lying, so we won't touch it. Coins are meant to look shiny. Plus, it's just a penny. How can you devalue a cent? During this whole ordeal, Entitled Aunt is practically screaming, hence the exclamation marks. I'm almost at my breaking point until I look in horror as she takes it out of its case. Entitled Cousin. Hey, give me. Entitled Aunt hands her the coin. All I remember is failing to hold in my tears as I don't like people touching my stuff. Entitled Cousin. Ew, it's dirty. Me. Okay, yes, now please give it back. She hands it to Entitled Aunt, and Entitled Aunt flicks it at me. Clean your coins. I've never put a coin in its case faster. At this point, I thought the whole thing was over. I was sorely mistaken, as the penny isn't ruined yet, now is it? Skip a few hours when the whole thing is past us and I'm playing Rust with my friends. Apparently, Entitled Aunt had come into my room and taken the coin without me knowing. Probably when I was farming for a base in the game. I usually listen to music while farming, so I wouldn't have noticed. A few minutes later, I get up to get a bottle of water to see Entitled Aunt at the sink. At first, I had thought nothing of it because it looked like she was washing her hands. I headed back into my room after grabbing a bottled water because the tap water here sucks, and go back to my room. 20 minutes later, I go out into the living room where they're watching something on TV. I look at the counter with horror as my prized possession, the eagle penny I valued so much, is sitting in a vinegar bath in a glass. I fish it out of the vinegar and see that they had cleaned the coin and devalued it. What I did next, I regret, but I didn't know how to act. Me. I told you not to touch my stuff. Entitled Aunt. Don't give me that. I don't let her finish her sentence before screaming back. Me. You touched my crap. I told you not to. You ruined this coin. You don't clean them. Entitled Cousin starts to cry. Yes, you do. Coins are supposed to be shiny. And how did I devalue a penny? You can't spend them. We are Canadian and we don't have the penny anymore. I couldn't argue any longer. I was crying and couldn't speak. I went to my room with the coin. I felt defeated. Around 10 minutes later, my mom comes back from their 3 to 4 hours out. They had spoiled the cousins and gotten something for Entitled Cousin. They were Hot Wheels. Entitled Aunt brings the situation up first. Your son needs to learn to respect what I do for him. Mom. Oh, what did he do? He cursed at me and ran his mouth like a sailor, all because I had cleaned a dirty coin he had. My mom helped me get all of the coins I have today, especially the eagle penny. We looked for a long time to get a hold of one, and it was the only penny that I had which wasn't clean before I got it. She was livid. I don't really know what happened. What I do know is what Entitled Aunt had said. Isn't your son too old to have toys and collect small things like coins? Is he a spastic? My mom kicked them out and came to check on me, and I showed her the coin. It basically lost half of its value. It wasn't until a few hours later I looked at my Hot Wheels and saw one was missing, the 64 Pontiac GTO. Now I keep my coins at my grandfather's house in the back room. Once a month, me and him go look at them and add to my collection. Now I have 60 coins, but I'll never have one just as special as my Flying Eagle penny was. Neighbor playing music till past 4 a.m. and gets indignant and rude after I politely ask her to turn it down. I believe the text messages speak for themselves, but just for some extra context, this is a text exchange between me and my neighbor. We've been friends for 10 plus years and share a thin wall in an apartment. Monday, 3:07 a.m. Me. Could you turn your music down, please? The bass is coming through the wall. Thanks. I said thanks because I thought she had turned it down. Turns out the song had just ended and she kept playing music till past 4 a.m. But at that point, I passed out. These are the texts I woke up to. Monday, 5:55 a.m. Her. Oh, please, get over yourself. My one day off. Mean gesture emoji. 6:55 a.m. Me. Not my day off. Get over yourself. I was super polite. At 3 a.m. too, which nobody else would have been. At that point, I'm up and rage-fueled, so I put my speaker, smallest speaker I have by the way, next to her wall and turn on the bassiest music I have while doing my morning work. 7:45 a.m. Her. Keith, for the love of God, you are so selfish and it truly is insane. I have not had an opportunity to listen to music or be out in months, and the one time, all you can think about is yourself. It amazes me how truly selfish and self-aware that you are. Sometimes I'm like, is he even my friend? Or is he just some jerk who lives next to me? You literally only care about yourself. Me. Anytime you ask me to do some basic neighbor stuff, I do it. I ask you to do even more basic neighbor stuff, and you tell me to go forget myself. Her. And now you are aggressively playing music because you can only think about yourself, right? For years, I never said anything because I was like, one day it will be my turn. And now look at you. Disgusting. You're pathetic. You only see yourself. It's amazing. Me. You only care about yourself. It's unacceptable socially and legally to play music after 2 a.m. That's when bars have to close here. Don't ask me for crap again. Her. I've been working 80-hour weeks, and I got one night to enjoy myself. I cannot believe all you can think about is you. It amazes me. Me. Then get some headphones. I'd like to play music every morning, but I don't because I think of you and our other neighbors. I hope you're wasted because any sober, reasonable person will see how in the wrong you are. Her. I'll live without you. You break my heart. It's like you don't even see me. After 12 years, it's just you that matters. Me. Sweet. Just please have common courtesy and keep the music down after 12 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. That's literally all that I'm asking. Her. Again and again, and I wonder why I even try with you. Me. My sleep matters more to me than you being a self-absorbed jerk. Her. You can buzz off, dude. Me. Blocked. I'd call the police past midnight. It has to be against some noise ordinance. After calling the police, I would inform the landlord, assuming you both rent from the same person, of the action you had to take. Don't let the behavior go. It only gets worse. OP. If it keeps happening, this sadly will be the course of action I will have to take. She's been one of my best friends for over 10 years, but if she won't apologize and continues to do this, I have no other options. She's basically telling me, 1 day a week, you're going to be sleep deprived at your job. What would you do in this situation? Would you call the cops on your neighbor or not? Please let us know. Did you two date in the past or something? It sounds like you might have some sort of a history together. Am I the jerk for letting my stepkids call me dad, even though it upsets my wife? I married my wife last year, after 4 years of dating, and we mixed our families. Her 2 sons, Dylan and Tyler, who are 16 and 11 now, and my daughter, Sam, who's 18 now. Our kids accommodated to the idea of living together pretty well. Dylan and Ty's father and my wife got divorced when Tyler was born, and they agreed he would only have visitation rights. Around 2 or 3 years ago, Tyler called me dad while we were having dinner, and that night, my wife asked me to correct her kids when they call me dad, out of respect for their actual father. I found it weird, but I agreed to, because in the end, they're her kids, although I never ended up doing it. This week, Dylan had a football match, and Tyler a piano lesson, which my wife usually picks them up after. This time, both she and I didn't have to work, so I suggested picking them up together. Dylan practically jumped to our car, and then we all went to pick up Tyler. And since I was there, I decided to meet his piano teacher too. When she met my wife, Dylan, and me, she greeted us and asked me if I was the kid's dad. I sincerely forgot about that promise I made years ago and said I indeed was their father. My wife almost instantly corrected me with, "Stepfather." And then Dylan said out loud, "Mom." The return home was awkward, and when we arrived, she called me out for breaking the promise we had by saying I'm the kid's dad. To make it worse, this morning, I noticed the kids are acting distant towards their mother, and they deliberately are calling me dad whenever she's around. I feel guilty because it's the first time there's been such tension between them, and it's my fault. Am I the jerk for calling them my kids? Your wife is working towards an estranged relationship with her boys. We can parent as much as we want, but we will never control our kids' feelings. She has assigned herself way too much power and her kids too little autonomy. We aren't talking about 6-year-olds. You didn't do anything other than step up to the plate that another man abandoned. Not the jerk. The whole goal of step-parenting is to have this kind of relationship. How can OP's wife be so mad about something so many people would dream of having? Because she's still dreaming of reconciling with the biological father. That was my first thought. Then I read the comments, and apparently the biological father misses visitation but still sees OP's wife regularly, which implies they're having an affair behind OP's back. I just hope OP isn't putting money into Dylan's college fund. Why? Why this in particular? If Dylan considers OP to be his dad, and OP feels much the same, would it be so bad? The kid's done nothing wrong, and his education isn't for his mother's benefit. I created a college fund for my ex's kid, who I love very much. A bad feeling between the parents shouldn't affect the kid. Not the jerk. She's upset because you are a father to her kids and love them and they love you back? I could understand their dad being upset, but not her. And honestly, not even him. He has visitation. You live with them. OP. He doesn't even visit them, so I actually would get mad if he protested. Not the jerk. I would understand if he was still in the picture, but I don't understand why your wife would want them to call you stepdad out of respect for an absent father. Respect is earned. He's done nothing to earn it and nothing to earn the title of dad. On the other hand, clearly you have. ETA. Okay, I see a lot of people responding to my comment, talking about the wife having an affair with the ex-husband. I didn't see his comments about the ex-husband still meeting with his wife regularly before I commented this. However, I still stand by my statement. He might still be actively present in the wife's life, but he is certainly not around enough in the kids' lives to earn the title of dad. Not the jerk. If the kids think of you as dad, then you're dad. Dad is not limited to biological father. Why can't the kids have two dads? Also, it should be seen as the highest of compliments. OP's wife should be grateful that her sons see and feel that way about their stepfather. It definitely isn't always the case. Your wife is the weird one, dude. It's almost as if she only wanted you to be there for the financial support, not to be a father to her kids. Her kids like you. The fact that they got upset on your behalf is proof of that. That's why they're deliberately going out of their way to call you dad. She hurt their feelings. She may not see you as her kid's dad, but they sure as heck see you as their dad. OP. That's the reason I never could tell them to stop calling me dad, even when I still wasn't as attached to them as I am now. Their tone was always affectionate and innocent, and nowadays, it even makes me happy that they consider me their dad. Being a stepdad was one of the best things I've had happen to me. Neither kid ever called me dad, and I was okay with that. If they did, I would have been okay with that also. The youngest is now 30 and still calls me dude. Close enough for me. I'm wondering if your wife is afraid of what her ex would do or say when her kids start calling you dad. Question, is the biological father's family present in the boys' lives? If they are, they can cause problems with your wife. OP, my wife and her ex are friends, but his family aren't present on Dylan and Tyler's lives. In fact, dude isn't either, to be honest. That honestly blows my mind. I'd have a really hard time being friends with the guy who abandoned our kids. I don't know what is up with your wife, but obviously the boys love you, so you're doing something right. OP, from what she told me, they broke up because they weren't attracted to each other anymore and preferred to go back to being friends. Well, now I wonder if she's just hung up on the guy and is upset that her kids have written him off. What? Hang on. She's friendly towards a guy who doesn't give a hoot about his own and her kids? Like, she can actually have a friendship going with him despite this? I predict in a couple years, her going back to him and leaving you with the kids. Seriously. And you'll be the winner here. This. OP's wife seems to be keeping biological dad's spot open in case he wants her back. Something is definitely off with her insistence on the stepdad stuff. Wouldn't be surprised if she's still hooking up with the absent dad while letting stepdad raise the kids. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. She wrong for that, bruh. This is a hill I think would be worth dying on. My girlfriend expected me to choose her over my cat, loses it on me when I refuse to do so. I, 25 female, have an 18-year-old cat, Misty. I've had her for most of my life, and she's helped me overcome many things, such as my parents' divorce, coming out, my mom's death, and much more. She's precious to me, and I know that she doesn't have much time left, so I go out of my way to spoil her every single day. 2 years ago, I got into a relationship with my girlfriend, Kara, who's 27. Kara knew I was a massive cat fan, and although she didn't share my enthusiasm for cats, she didn't mind it. Last year, I offered Kara to move in with me. I own my own apartment, which I inherited from my mother. It's in a nice location in our town, and it's close to Kara's job. She agreed and moved in the following month. Half a year after moving in, Kara fell ill out of the blue. She brushed it off at first, saying it's probably nothing, but I convinced her to go see a doctor and have some tests done. The test results came in, and we were shocked to discover Kara is allergic to cats. Apparently, she was probably mildly allergic to cats all her life, but since she was never exposed to them for a long period of time, it was never discovered. Her being exposed to Misty for over a year is what made her allergies much worse. I've talked with Kara about our plans in the future. I offered she could start taking anti-allergy medication, which I said I'll pay for. But she refused, saying she doesn't want to swallow a pill every day so she can keep living at home, which is valid. I then asked her when she's going to move out. Kara looked at me confused, so I explained that since her living with Misty is what's causing her health issues, it'll be better for her to move out. Kara started arguing with me, claiming I'm ridiculous for suggesting she moves out over a cat. I told her I'm not going to rehome Misty under any circumstances, and offered she could move in again after Misty passes away eventually, but until then, she'll have to find a different place to live in. After arguing some more, Kara left to sleep at her sister's place, and I've been getting calls from mutual friends who caught wind of the situation. Some were sympathetic, while others called me heartless for preferring a dying pet over a living human. I'm very conflicted over this whole situation, and although I feel like I'm doing what's right and my request isn't unreasonable, I'm afraid I might be the jerk. Am I the jerk? What is more alarming than the fact that she won't take a simple allergy pill is the fact that she has zero empathy for your 18-year bond with your cat. You may be dodging a bullet, not the jerk. This is actually a really good point. Rehome the animal you've loved for 18 years because I don't want to take one pill per day? Eesh, with a lack of empathy. And not just OP's bond to Misty, it's Misty's bond to OP as well. Cats love their humans. It would be cruel to rehome her at that age. Also, no one is going to adopt an 18-year-old cat. She would spend her last years likely sick in a shelter. Edit. Should have said almost no one. Of course, some wonderful people will give seniors their best retirement years. Not the jerk. You offered a practical solution and she refused. If a pill is so much work, she can find somewhere else to stay. Your cat has been part of your life for almost your entire life. You deserve every single moment with Misty. Not the jerk. Girlfriend has the option of trying anti-allergy meds. This is pretty standard for people with allergies, and she's refusing. You have a commitment to your cat that goes back nearly 20 years, and it's bigger than choosing a cat over a girlfriend. It's about your girlfriend not recognizing what's important to you in life and trying to understand and compromise. When you move in together, this can highlight really deep-seated incompatibilities, which is why people live together for a while and then don't end up getting married, etc. This could just be the time when you recognize that you both have a different approach to some stuff in life, and there's some big theme incompatibilities. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her girlfriend? Please let us know. Congratulations on dodging that bullet, OP. Give Misty some scratches for us. Meow. Boss said no shorts. I work at an office that sells bulk goods to businesses that use them, like retail outlets, etc. Our office doesn't usually have a strict dress code, but we recently got a new boss, Jerk, who's quite literally a real pain. He's constantly yelling at everyone about basic things like punching in a minute or two early or late, or being a word or two off the script during outbound or inbound calls. Dealing with him in general has made me hate the job more. As it's getting hotter, I've been wearing khaki shorts to work the past few days, which is something I've always done for the past few years, and nobody has confronted me about it before. So I figured nothing would change this year. But boy, was I wrong. About halfway through my shift, this boss comes to my desk and realizes I'm wearing shorts and is visibly annoyed. He mutters something under his breath and goes back to his office. An hour later, I was called into his office, where he proceeded to berate me about breaking dress code. He was fuming and ended the meeting with, "From now on, you follow the dress code to the book, or you're fired." Say no more, boss. That night, I went home and read up on the dress code rules. There was, in fact, a rule against shorts, so I was annoyed, but kept on. And then I found it. There is no rule preventing males from wearing skirts or kilts. Here's where I devised my plan. I immediately ordered a pink and white striped kilt online, as well as matching knee-high socks and shirt. There was no rule stated in the dress code against any of this, surprisingly. About a week later, the clothes arrived, and here is what ensued the following workday. I walked in wearing my new pink business outfit, and immediately the whole office is staring at me, and the boss who came in to cover another boss's shift in the morning was beet red in the face and yelled at me to come in his office. He goes on a 10-minute rant about how I'm a useless employee and that he's going to fire me for not following the dress code to a T. I simply stated, "I am in dress code. I urge you to read the employee handbook." He ended up reading the whole thing in front of me, and I could see him getting more and more angry as he realized I didn't break any rules. I asked him, "Am I free to go back to work?" And he looked at me with a death glare, muttered something under his breath, and waved me off. Where I used to work had a similar rule, but women were allowed to wear capris and shorts that sat below the knee. One coworker came in, male, wearing shorts because it's hot, like 80 degrees, in our work area. I'm in capris, as is another female worker. He got told off. His shorts were nearly covering his knees. So the next day he comes up in the same shorts, but had stitched some black bands around the bottom so that they were around the same length as the shorts I had on. Darn straight, I pointed out that his were the same length as mine, so why wasn't I being sent home too? Well, they couldn't do that because no one would be running the returns. Rules were then changed to allow guys to wear below-knee shorts as well. Kilt was suggested to other male coworkers too, cause it's wrong. Guys should be allowed to wear shorts. Am I the jerk for getting my pregnant coworker in so much trouble she may lose her job and paid maternity leave? I, 28 male, met M, female 24, on a dating app 3 years ago. At this time, I had recently landed a paid apprenticeship in a profession I truly love. We found out she was also hired for the same apprenticeship and we would be in a class together. We went on a date and it went normal. We went for drinks and we took a bus back. Her father would pick her up in my town. Since it took about half an hour for her dad to arrive, we took a seat on a bench near the bus stop. We continued talking and ended up kissing for a short time. At the start of our interaction, I had warned her that I would not appreciate if our coworkers got involved. This was exactly what happened, and I made it clear I didn't want to continue due to constant interference of her team. I still believed she kept silent. Contact watered down, but we kept texting from time to time since we were still classmates and we didn't want to make it awkward or lose the chance to vent to each other about work and school. Fast forward 3 years and I get my diploma after lots of issues stemming from rumors. At this time, I still believe she's on my side and just informing me. At this point, she and I blame her coworkers and speak extremely negative about them. She told me, interns were warned for me as I would hook up with anybody I could. Interns reported to the team leader I was hitting on them. When asked for names, none could be given because excuses. Her team only talked crap about me and spread rumors. I got placed on her team, and in the past weeks, I have heard claims that could damage my future. This leads me to believe she made up the drama she told me about to be vindictive. I'm not a very confident person, and I have lost an internship due to rumors before. I'm the grandson of a notorious man in this small rural community. She is/was aware of this. She told her team, we hooked up after the date on a wooden bench outside. She had to block me on Facebook because I would harass her if I found out she was pregnant. I'm still obsessed with her and would often send her pictures. I made classmates awkward because I would follow her like a lost dog or try to harass her when seated next to her. None of all of the listed things ever happened. Last week, after a fire safety drill where I ignored her, she told her team I was being rude and distant to her because I was jealous she was pregnant with someone else. I got offended that she was still actively trying to paint a false image of me, so I reported her to the manager and HR. I also kept some proof from the WhatsApp conversations, and she may lose her internship/job. I feel guilty because I really did like her at the time, and I do not want to deny a baby, that had nothing to do with this, a provided start in life. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. What she was doing was slander and harassment. It isn't your responsibility to be treated poorly to maybe protect another person's baby. She'll find another job, but you deserve to feel safe and comfortable in your workplace. OP, as well as dealing with this in the workplace, I hope you consider taking her to court for slander and harassment, restraining order too. What a nasty piece of work. Not the jerk. She has intentionally destroyed your reputation and career. She cares nothing for the damages she has caused, so why are you allowing yourself to feel any guilt for the consequences of her actions? So much not the jerk. She has gone way too far. I appreciate you trying to be civil and the concern for her kid, but seriously, that's extreme nuts of her. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker her bad decisions and her kids are not my responsibility? So here's what happened. I, 35 female, was talking to a coworker, a different one, and while talking about plans for the next few weeks, I told her I would be taking my daughter, who's 9, to a Broadway show that we both love. Another coworker, who's 30 female, heard us talking. She has 5 kids, her oldest being my daughter's age. She has tried to force a friendship between my daughter and hers since she started working here. I tried, and they had a few play dates over the last 4 years, and my daughter just doesn't enjoy her daughter's company, so I decided not to force her into more play dates. So when she heard us talking about the show, she decided her daughter and her will be joining us. I didn't want her or her daughter to feel bad, so I didn't decline. She asked me about our seats to get some next to us, and when I told her, she looked them up and she started complaining about the prices and asking why we couldn't sit in a cheaper section. I told her I understood if she couldn't pay those prices and that they could seat somewhere else, but we prefer those seats. She ended up buying the tickets right behind us. She showed up early, inserted herself in our plans. So many things happened, but can't write them all. Dinner was the worst. She hadn't been invited for that either. She saw the restaurant and quickly said they wouldn't be able to afford it. I told her I would pay for them. Her daughter threw a tantrum because they didn't have what she wanted. She's 9 and crying like a toddler. Her mother does nothing. For info, I can afford this because my family has money. So did my husband. He passed 2 years ago and left us his money. We finally get to the theater and it's horrible. Her daughter wouldn't stop talking loudly and whining. She was asked to step out and calm her kids several times during the show. After intermission, her child was again crying because she wanted the same cup my daughter had, but her mom didn't buy it. I didn't know she had asked her mom for one. She was asked to leave the theater with her kid. She started arguing, lost, and then told me, "Let's just go." I said, "No, I'm staying." The show ends and I figured they had gone home. They were outside waiting. Then she went off on me how I should have left with her, how she spent all this money for the stupid show, and that I should take them home and pay for the tickets. I exploded, told her she could find her way home, and that her spending the money was not my problem. She says her kids will go hungry until next paycheck, and it's my fault. I told her she invited herself, and that her bad finances and her kids are not my responsibility, and left with my daughter. All week she's been going on how she can't feed her kids and that it's my fault. People at work have sided with me, but I feel so bad now thinking about her kids being hungry. I know I can and could just give her money, but the fact that she says it's my fault stops me. So, am I the jerk? Should I just give her the money to feed her kids? Not the jerk, but you really need to grow a spine. You are allowed to have a nice outing to a show with your daughter. So I would say you were the jerk to your daughter, who had her Broadway show experience ruined because you couldn't stand up to a jerk. OP, you are absolutely right. I will make it up to my daughter. I always felt bad for this woman because it can't be easy with 5 kids and alone. I don't know details of the kid's father, but in the beginning, I figured she just wanted company. I just ignore her now, but her comments about the kids were getting to me. Why do I feel like she's social climbing? You seem to have elegant tastes and a bit well off. She's forcing her kid to be buddy-buddy with yours and her on you. Told quantity, not quality, by boss. Gave them exactly that. I worked at a law firm that handled an extremely high volume of cases. I'm talking thousands per month. And due to the specific field they were in, the work called for a ton of motion practice. We had to respond to motions on nearly every case, after which the cases would settle, and we would be paid relatively small amounts that added up. To answer all the motions, we would use a boilerplate template, input a few specifics via prompts, and send it off. This would take about 15 to 20 minutes. It was a profitable scheme, and to be fair, it worked for that specific field of law. This is highly irregular and would be nearly impossible to effectively mount a counter-argument in any other field of law, which typically requires research and fact-specific rebuttal to very specific challenges to your case. Fast forward, and now the firm is taking on cases in a new field of law, nearly all between 200 to 300,000 per case, or about 100x what a case in their original field would take. We needed to draft and file complaints on these cases. To achieve this, the partners insisted that our senior attorney would create a template. Our paralegal staff, making $10 an hour, would speak with the client and create an intake cover sheet for each case. And I would be the lucky middleman who gets to input the cover sheet data into the template and generate a complaint for every single case in this new field that the firm was handling. In essence, they thought we could handle this new, complex, different field of law with much higher stakes in much the same way they were handling our normal cases. The intake staff had no clue what they were doing, and the boilerplate template was wildly insufficient to allege the particular facts, which varied so considerably between cases, also why intake had problems. The partners thought it should take me about 15 to 20 minutes to generate a complaint with their method, but the reality was I actually had to review every file from scratch, figure out what was going on, input the data myself, make massive edits to the complaint, etc. It would take me at least 1.5 hours to do a good job, and honestly, that's what I did, a good job. As you can imagine, something of a backlog ensued, and the partners wanted to know what the issue was. I explained that due to the nature of the cases, they were requiring specific edits. I offered several recommendations for how we could improve our efficiency, but they didn't want to hear it. I explained that these cases were worth significantly more, and even spending 4 to 5 times longer on them than on our other cases was still a huge win for them. They wanted paper out. Quantity over quality, I was told. Leave the decisions to them. Do what I'm instructed to do and play my part on the assembly line. Note that these partners did actually no legal work whatsoever on any cases. They once did long ago, but now just watch cameras all day and complain if you're 5 minutes late. In a fit of frustrations and rage, I maliciously complied. I actually stayed late a few nights and banged out maybe 75 or so complaints that had backlogged. I sent them all to the senior attorney for final review, with no edits whatsoever. Wrong data from our intake team, nonsensical legal arguments, fact patterns that were completely untrue, just like I was told. About 3 workdays later, I got called in for a meeting about what was going on in these complaints, and that the senior attorney was about 1/3 of the way through what I had sent him, and not one of the complaints was suitable to be filed. I told them I was just doing my job on the assembly line, and that the issue must be coming from somewhere else, but definitely not from me, because I did exactly as instructed and mindlessly input the data and sent it along. They told me this was unacceptable, and if there was an issue, I should have brought it up to their attention, to which I replied that I tried and was not listened to. They refused to accept defeat and attempted to change data collection, change the templates to no avail. It got hostile. No matter what they did, their system just didn't work, and I continued to comply with their insistence I do my job and my job only. It was unbelievable how stubborn these people were. Quit that job and moved on. I've been tracking some of the cases online, and they're getting dismissed on motion. Quantity, not quality, eh? Not how I practice law. How I got a Karen's car towed. I recently bought a house and moved in. The previous owner rented the house out to students and transformed a big part of the front yard into a parking place. My front yard is basically just 4 parking spaces. I live alone and basically only use one of the parking spaces, but while the painters, handyman, and gardeners for the backyard were there, they used the other parking spaces during the day because the nearest community parking spaces are half a kilometer from my house, so about a 5-minute walk. When they were done and I moved in, my elderly neighbor, who cannot walk without a cane, asked if she could continue the deal she made with the previous owner. She showed me the contract she made with the previous owner that states that she can use it in exchange for a home-cooked meal once a month. I told her she didn't have to give me anything as I understood her situation, but she insisted. So I signed the contract to let her use the space closest to her house. This went well for a couple of months before another house in the street was sold, and the new neighbor asked if their handyman and painters could use the parking places until they were done, as it was not handy to make them walk all the way to and from their truck. You're not allowed to park in the street. I told them it was fine, but only the handyman and painters can use the spaces. When they are done, I did not want others I did not make a deal with using my parking spaces, as I like to keep the spaces clear for my girlfriend, friends, and family when they're allowed to visit again. Fast forward a month, and the handyman and painters are finished with the house, and the new neighbors started using the spaces. I told them this wasn't what we discussed and that they had to leave. They told me that the spaces are community spaces and she and her husband could use them as I didn't need 4 spaces for myself. I told her to move the cars or I would have them towed. They moved their cars and didn't use the spaces anymore for a week. As soon as she parked her car there again, I immediately called a tow company, and half an hour later, her car got towed. The next day, she came up to me, asking me where her car went. I told her I had it towed because she parked in my front yard. My friend tells me I'm being a petty jerk for having her car towed, and I should apologize. My girlfriend tells me I did the right thing, as they would have probably claimed my entire front yard as their personal parking places if I didn't make a point out of it. So, am I the jerk here? My neighbor has been stealing my Wi-Fi for months. Gets exactly what she deserves. I, 23 female, live next door to Jenny. She lives with her husband and their kid. I work almost all day outside, and in my spare time, I play games on PS4 during the week. I pay for good internet because I like not having any lag while playing or any internet slowness. My PS4 is in my room and the internet router is in the living room, so it's Wi-Fi and not cable. And because of that, I constantly check the internet speed and it's always X amount. A few months ago, I invited Jenny's family over for dinner and gave them my Wi-Fi password. Apparently, theirs was weak at my house, and I went through politeness. Last month, I started to notice very bad internet speed, 1/10 of what it was before, and a few technical visits to resolve, until the technician asked if I had passed the password to someone in the building, and I put the pieces together. I then changed the password because the internet was crap and I didn't want to share it with 3 more people. Last week, the neighbor knocked on my door and asked for my Wi-Fi password because her internet wasn't working, and I commented saying that I changed it because there were people on it from other apartments that were using it. She got the message and said she was having a hard time and couldn't pay for her own internet. So in desperation, she used mine, and if I couldn't give her the new password, promising that they would only use it at night when they got home from work. I denied, saying that night was my leisure time too, and that I didn't want to have bad internet, and I don't want to pay more for the internet to be good for 4 people, and even more so for her to be using it for a month without my permission. She stomped off and, oh goodness, my new image in the building is being the petty jerk who doesn't want to share Wi-Fi with people who are struggling financially. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why should you have to pay the bills for her, especially when she was stealing it and making you suffer through trying to figure out what was wrong? And it's definitely not a one-time thing. They did it constantly, and I'm 100% sure it's not just for sending emails or something work-related. Must be streaming something or other stuff, and it's more than just 1 or 2 people using it to make OP's side so slow. 100% I agree. I live with my boyfriend, and we had another roommate. Boyfriend would game, I would send occasional work emails and did other remote work, and roommate would do nothing but, very loudly, stream movies when she came home. Internet would always be fine when it was just me occasionally checking emails and my boyfriend gaming. But the minute the roommate came home, the internet would practically stop working. My emails wouldn't even send at all, and games became completely unplayable. When the roommate moved out, we haven't had issues with the internet speed since. Am I the jerk for kicking my brother and his family out after his son stole my engagement ring? The reason I, 26 male, know is because I literally caught him in my room going through my things, and it's on camera. My nephew is 9 and he has a habit of stealing things. They've gotten in trouble a few times at stores because he'd leave with something in his pocket. But of course, because he's a kid, they usually just say he forgot he had it. Even at school, my brother has told me they've had to come talk to the principal on a couple of occasions. Doesn't seem like they've done anything to stop it. They had to come stay here with me because my brother lost his job and they weren't going to make it with all their bills, including rent. He's doing Uber right now while he searches for a job, and they can move out. I didn't want to because of my nephew specifically, but family is family, I guess. A month ago, I finally bought an engagement ring for my girlfriend that I was planning on proposing to soon, but now I don't know. It's a $4,000 ring that I spent over a year saving up for. It's been hidden in my room under one of the drawers. One time, when I found him snooping in my room, I told my brother to control his kid, then got one of those cheap spy cams in my room just in case. Then, last week, I noticed it was out of its box. After checking the camera, it showed he was in there again when I wasn't home. My brother and his wife have yelled at him. He says he left it by the TV in the guest room, but it's not there. They looked through all their stuff and his too. I know for a fact he's lying about not having it because that's the same thing he said about one of my watches he took, then ended up finding it. By the second day, my brother tells me that they can't find it at all. And I told him either they find the ring or he repays me the $4,000 I spent on it. If not, they can't stay here anymore. My brother got really upset. He told me I know how their situation is right now. And yeah, it's a tough spot, but I couldn't ignore the fact that his kid he can't parent took something extremely important to me that cost a lot of time and money. They were given a week to leave my house if they don't find the ring. They're having to stay at a cheap motel, but my brother won't stop begging to come back because what they're paying right now each night is coming directly out of their savings. He won't stop calling me heartless about letting something like this come between helping them out through a difficult time, and my nephew keeps saying he's sorry. It's just hard right now to want them around. Don't even know what to do about the ring, and every time I think about it, it just makes me so mad that it's hard to care about their situation. Does that make me a jerk? Not the jerk. They sold the ring. I think so too. At this point, why won't his nephew say where it went? The thing with kleptomaniacs is they often don't know what to do with the things they steal. They may have washed it down the sink, flushed it down the toilet, buried it in the garden, etc., just to hide it. It's not so much about having things, it's about taking them. It's highly unfortunate that he took something so important, and his parents definitely need to get him help and should have done so already, which could have prevented this. Okay, I want to make a couple of suggestions. The first is to use a metal detector in and around your house and yard. The second is, if his parents really haven't sold it, Think about where you might hide something if you were a kid. Somewhere that seems like a permanent and safe hiding space, especially if he knew he was moving and wouldn't be able to take it on him. As a kid, I always felt like the backyard was a permanent space. Look under bricks that can be moved or in any trees. The third thing I was thinking, make a report with the police. If it's possible to scare him into talking, it will. If you and he need other resources, they may be able to point you in the right direction. His parents are responsible for him. You can't just let a year's worth of savings go. Even if they can't pay it back right away, they might say, "But we're family, let it go." But equally, family wouldn't want you to lose a year's worth of your savings and to have had such a monumental milestone for you ruined. Also, think about things like pockets on clothing and in wardrobes. Another suggestion, do you have floorboards? What would you do in this situation? Would you let them keep living with you or not? Please let us know. I would have kicked them out long ago, the first time he stole something from me. Was it wrong of me to defend my husband at my son's engagement dinner? I, 45 female, only use Reddit for the cats, so bear with me here. My husband, 55 male, and I have a son who I'll call Logan, who's 22 male. Logan is engaged to his girlfriend, Jenny, 27 female. She was a regular at a grocery store where he worked at as a cashier, and Logan asked her out. The age difference and my son's youth, edit, since he's only 22, bothers me since he could get someone his own age as he's very handsome. Last weekend, we were flown over by Jenny to her parents' house for dinner to celebrate their engagement. It was obvious that we were from two different worlds. While Jenny is a polite girl, she is a money-minded person. She works in a white-collar industry where she literally makes 8 to 9 times more than my husband does. She also has expensive taste. She clearly learned this from her parents. They live in an enormous house and make a lot of money. They had maids. My husband and me are a lot more humble. He's a veteran and works as a mechanic. I'm a stay-at-home mom. We started talking about our kids' childhoods. I hate to say it, but Logan was a difficult kid to raise. He cried very easily, would always talk about ridiculous things, and lied and hid things. My husband told a story about how Logan failed the ASVAB in high school, but instead of telling the truth, he ran away and hid at the playground. He was 17 at the time. Logan also was not allowed to join the military at 18 because of his low scores, though he was physically fit. Jenny's father said that in Singapore, where they are immigrants from, all men had to join the military for 2 years and education was important. Jenny made a comment about how Singapore has a narrow definition of success. My husband then joked that the only reason Logan wanted to marry Jenny was because she was rich and smart, and he could coast with her wealth. Edit. Logan told us how he planned to be a stay-at-home husband for Jenny, even though they don't have or want to have kids. Jenny's parents were furious and immediately began to insult me and my family. Her mom said that they didn't want their only child to marry a dumb gold digger, plus some choice words about our family. I yelled back at her, said my husband was right, and they didn't understand the value of hard work sitting in their chairs all day, and Jenny should have realized that no 22-year-old good-looking guy would want to marry someone older than him. She might be ready to settle down, but he isn't. We all left, with Logan and Jenny leaving separately. My son called and asked why I would embarrass him like that. I told him we were being honest. He sounded teary and yelled at me. He said his life was bad because of my husband. I admit, my husband was strict, but that was only because of what Logan did. I told Logan that it was his fault, and if he hadn't been the way he was, my husband would have been much more relaxed, and that Logan would one day thank us for raising him. Edit. Logan is not my husband's biological son. My husband and I married at 30 and 40 when Logan was 7. You're the jerk. How are you? Let me count the ways. 1. Started out mocking your son in front of his in-laws. 2. Acting snotty about a successful couple and their successful daughter. Jealous much? 3. Mock your son for wanting to be a stay-at-home husband when you're a stay-at-home wife. 4. Act like your son's girlfriend is a cougar when there's only a 5-year age difference, when there are 10 years between you and your husband. 5. Doing a lousy job raising your son. That's enough for now. I doubt you'll take any of this to heart anyway. Here's hoping the younger folks work out their issues and have a lovely wedding without you there. Just looking at this list, it becomes immediately clear what a disaster OP and OP's husband are. Who goes to meet their future in-laws and decides that appropriate conversation is insulting their own son, culminating in accusing him of being a gold digger. And then, when the future in-laws begin to question the son's intentions, they turn around and insult them too. OP, You and your husband need to look past the enormous chips on your shoulders to see how inappropriate and cruel you're being to your son, Jenny, and Jenny's family. Don't be surprised when your son goes no contact with you. Obviously, you're the jerk. And what world is 4 years in age difference of any significance? Keep your nose out of other people's business. Also, your kid is 22 now. You aren't a stay-at-home mother anymore, unless you have other kids who are younger. You're the jerk. Also, if you think that age gap is bad, then what about your own with your husband? Is your own past and background clouding your opinions? Seems like a smidge of projection going on here. Am I the jerk for demanding someone's seat and getting them fired? At short notice, I had to get a train with my 2 kids, who are 1 and 3. I booked us tickets with assigned seats and packed plenty of distractions for them. When the train arrived, it was clearly overcrowded, and our seats were taken by a couple in business attire and company lanyards. They had covered the seats next to the 4 in a square around a table with their bags and clearly weren't intending to move. I asked them if they were in the wrong seats, and I was ignored. I raised my voice slightly and asked them to check that they were in the right seats, as I had booked them, 3 seats total. I was told to buzz off, back to my deadbeat baby daddy. I was furious. Luckily, another passenger alerted a train guard who removed them from the carriage after a lot of back and forth, insults, and threats towards us. I was very shaken up, but a number of passengers offered support, made my kids laugh, and said they'd keep an eye on us. During the journey, a passenger insisted I should have the video he had taken of the altercation. Another passenger provided the names and company information of the 2 people, displayed on their lanyards. Multiple people recommended I follow up with an email to their company and offered to be a witness. I didn't do this then. After speaking to my husband, I emailed the company with a full explanation of what happened and asked that they speak with their employees. In their reply, they said I was one of a number of people emailing about this incident, with video evidence and witness accounts. They had already suspended the employees, but now I, as the victim, had emailed they would be terminated immediately in line with company policy. I felt awful. I never expected them to lose their jobs, and I felt shell-shocked. My husband called it karma, but several friends think I should have never reported them and told the other passengers not to either. Am I the jerk for getting them fired? Bruh, your friends told you not to report them? I'm sorry, but your friends are idiots. You didn't get them fired. Their nasty behavior got them fired. Please try to recognize that you are not responsible for this incident or the consequences, not the jerk. Yup, they shouldn't have been entitled jerks in the first place, so that's 100% on them. On top of that, it's nobody's fault but their own that they were foolish enough to act so rudely in broad daylight while openly advertising their company IDs and lanyards. They very well might have also been on company time. Regardless, they're the ones who made fools of themselves, and they're the ones who made their company look bad with their behavior. Not the jerk. Do crappy things to other people, and you sometimes get crappy consequences. They not only insulted, but actually threatened you guys. Their behavior is far beyond the bounds of intolerable, and the outcome is nobody's fault but their own. You didn't get them fired. They got them fired. They are 2 really, really horrible people, and they brought this on themselves with their own horribleness. And it's not like you knew they would be fired. It was perfectly reasonable of you to make a complaint to their employer, who they were representing in public. Look at it this way. You may have helped give them the kick in the pants that they needed to become better human beings. Am I the jerk for no longer helping my stepdaughter? So I, 38 female, have been with my husband John, 40 male, for over 6 years now, and we have 2 kids. He has a daughter, Kim, who's 15, that I've been helping him raise since she was 9, and our son Sam, who's 6 months. Her mother isn't in her life anymore due to reasons unknown to us. The problem started off after I asked Kate if she could help me with some chores around the house while I took care of Sam. We got into a fight over which one of us should do dishes, when she yelled that I'm not her real mother and locked herself in her room. When John came home, I expected him to talk some reason into her, but after their talk, he ended up agreeing with her. They both sat me down and he told me that she was right to say that I'm not her mother because I'm not, and that I overstepped my boundaries by asking her to clean. According to John, her only focus should be on her homework and housework should be my job. I'll be honest in saying that I was heartbroken at that moment. I've always thought of her as my daughter and have treated her as such. To find out that she doesn't feel the same way and that my husband supports this decision made me lose a lot of love for both of them. I told them that I would respect their wishes, but I warned them that I would no longer go out of my way to help her. He can raise her, and I would spend my time raising Sam. He agreed. True to my word, I have not helped her with homework. She either has to get a ride from her dad in the morning or take the city bus. I no longer put money away for her college fund and have used that money to start Sam's. All I do is cook and do her laundry, and that's it. Both my husband and Kim haven't adjusted well to this new arrangement, and I can't help but feel like a jerk for keeping this up. I've confessed to my best friend about this, and she says that I'm not, because this is exactly what they asked for, and if they wanted it to stop, they would simply apologize. So I need unbiased opinions. Am I the jerk? You have a husband problem. Kids do chores. It's part of growing up and being responsible. Yes, there are reasonable limits to them, and homework comes first. But whether you are biologically related to her is irrelevant, and their focus on that is simply hurtful. Stop doing her laundry. Stop cooking for her. Those are for her, not for the house. And I don't know what arrangement you have with your husband, but his telling a teenager in your home that you have no right to tell her to do anything, insisting that all housework is your job, and claiming you overstepped by giving instruction to a kid you have co-parented for 6 years is ridiculous. I think you need some couples and family counseling. Not the jerk, but please realize that this situation cannot continue. All lines of fracture in this household are only going to get worse. It's pretty typical for a teen to say mean things to their parents when they don't want to do chores. It's not right, but a mother isn't going to completely pull back from their kid over it. The problem here is really the husband. OP, not the jerk, as her actions are more about consequences for the husband than the daughter, which is why not making this girl dinner would be wrong. I have to wonder if this is more about husband being resentful of the new baby and taking out his frustrations on OP via the daughter. It just makes no sense for him to have this "you're not her mom" attitude. Husband is so awful. The kid didn't say that in the heat of the moment. She decided to go to her dad and have a sit down with OP to do what she did. The husband is wrong for sure, but the kid also needs to learn the consequences to her actions. Not the jerk. Why are you even doing her laundry? She's 15 and old enough to do it herself. She should be doing chores around the house too. Your husband really handled this poorly, and his statement that you overstepped boundaries by asking her to help is complete BS. Good luck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Sounds like daddy's raising a Karen to me. You want all of the students to not follow the school uniform? Okay. A few years ago, I retired from teaching in the UK, and I particularly love the stories of malicious compliance from schools and colleges. The recent threads about malicious compliance by students, which teachers had to take on the chin, brought back many memories, so I thought I'd share one which involves me and my students, and which happened in my first year of teaching in 1981. I was fresh out of college and went to teach science in a secondary, 11 to 16, school in a rural town in which a lot of the students were the kids of farmers and could be quite a challenge. I was only a few years older than some of them, and I was walking a very fine line between wanting to be liked and having some level of respect and authority, something which every new teacher will remember. I had replaced a popular teacher and had been given his tutor group, home group, and they weren't making it easy for me. To be fair, I probably deserved it. One of the main protagonists was a boy whose father was a successful farmer who happened to be chair of the governors and who was always keen to protest when he wasn't happy with something. We'll call him SH, as those were his initials, and this was 40 years ago. The other person involved in this story is the head of year. I'll call him Jordy. Was an old-timer who had been unsuccessful when applying for the deputy headship, and so there was a fair amount of resentment bubbling away, which he tended to take out on the students, and occasionally staff. Our school had a uniform policy. I didn't have a problem with this, as it does act as a bit of a leveler, especially when families can't afford the latest fashion, and as tutor, it was my job to make sure everyone was appropriately dressed, which I was doing the best of my ability. Anyway, many of the kids were in basic uniform, but they sometimes pushed the limits of what was acceptable. A common problem was whether footwear was trainers or shoes, but as long as their appearance was within the spirit of the rules, I was pretty much okay with it. Jordy, however, was not. At a team meeting, he went on a rant about how standards were being allowed to slip and that we were not being vigilant enough. He reminded us that it was our job to maintain standards and ended with the demand that the next day we send to him any student who was not in proper uniform. He waved the school handbook at us and told us if we didn't know what this was, we could find it in there. I was upset. I was walking a fine enough line with these students, and this wasn't going to make my life any easier. Cue the malicious compliance. I checked the school handbook very carefully, and the next morning I was ready. After I had taken the register, I announced that anyone not in proper school uniform would be reporting to Mr. Jordy. Groans and protests. First of all, I sent a couple of jerks who were always pushing things too far, but then I began the malicious element. The regulations said black V-neck jumper. Yours has a round neck. Down you go. Is that a logo on your shirt? It says plain white here. Off you go. The regs also specified plain black socks. They had been written some years earlier and never reviewed. In the early 80s, many kids wore white socks. I know. So down went all the white socks, and the atmosphere in the classroom got distinctly more hostile towards me. Then I singled out SH, the class mouthpiece. Down you go, I insisted. He was furious and came right up to me and was almost in my face. He demanded to know why, so I told him. He was wearing black socks, but I had noticed they had two colored bands around the top. I explained that the rules specifically said plain black socks and that his were not plain. He was mad and our eyes locked, and then it happened. To this day, I remember how his face changed as he realized that this was not me against him, it was us against Jordy. He then went round the class, helpfully pointing out all the minor infringements that I had missed, and we ended up sending every kid in the class, apart from 3 or 4 who were in full uniform, and who were frankly disappointed not to be sent down. Jordy had gone hard on the first few who were sent down, and then couldn't treat the others differently, so he got it from the parents who didn't appreciate being contacted about these socks. Shortly after this, the rules were rewritten to be more flexible as long as the spirit of the uniform was upheld. From that day on, I had a fantastic tutor group. SH became head boy and was a credit to the school and worked as hard for me as any other student I taught since. And in 40 years of teaching, despite many instances of malicious compliance, I never managed to top the time my students collaborated with me in an act of malicious compliance. Just find room for 10 extra pallets of soda. I used to work for a national soda company. My job is to swing by stores several times a day and restock the shelves from supplies in the back rooms. 4th of July is by far the busiest day of the year, as most stores have big sales. At the time I worked, a common sale was 5 12-packs for $10. Anywho, the problem each year is that there just isn't enough space in stores' back rooms to have enough products to last the entire day. So what should happen is that drivers do extra deliveries to keep products on the shelves. Well, my boss had decided he doesn't want to pay overtime on a holiday, so this year he has a plan. We will order more product than we have space for and put our product in areas reserved for other vendors and the store itself. So July 3rd, the load shows up. Right away, it's apparent that there is just way too much stuff, even if I use space I'm not supposed to, and the backroom manager is upset with me because my pallets are in the way of everyone else trying to get their stuff in and out. I call my boss and let him know this is never going to work out, and they need to come do buyback on some of the pallets. He tells me to make it work and hangs up. Cue malicious compliance. I grab a pallet jack and walk the entire pallet out onto the floor of the store. This store has narrow aisles. I go to the soda aisle and drop the pallet. It completely takes up the aisle. Customers can't walk in or out. Repeat about a dozen times. Then I leave for the day. I get a call from my boss. He isn't happy with me. He wants me to go back to the store and somehow find space that doesn't exist. I tell him I've already had a few drinks and won't be driving anywhere. He tells me I'm fired and hangs up. Whatever, I've got other job offers, and now I can go hang out at my buddy's barbecue and watch fireworks. I get a call at 6 a.m. from my boss. He's losing it on me because we start at 4 a.m. on the 4th. I told him he told me I was fired, so I'm at home sleeping in. He tells me he was just joking and I need to go get to work now. I tell him that I've already taken an offer working for a competing company. Not true, but he doesn't know. And they're paying me $5 more per hour than he is, and 5 extra days PTO. If he wants me back, I want $6 more per hour, and an extra 6 days of PTO. He gets mad at me and hangs up. Whatever, I go back to sleep. 5 minutes later, my boss calls again. He tells me that he will do it, but I have to leave now. Sounds like Pepsi. I used to work for Pepsi, and they did this kind of crap every holiday, and it was always on the merchandisers, not the brain-dead salesmen, to make the stores happy with these cluster messes. So glad I got out. Forget them. Entitled Mom wants me to give her son an expensive Gundam kit for free. For context, I work at a store that specializes in Japanese imported items, such as toys, gadgets, and electronics, and all of it is good quality for a good price. But sometimes we get imported very high-end stuff So to compensate for how much the shipment cost, we have to boost the price. In this story, a whiny brat wants a Gundam building kit that is around $50 to $100, and I can't remember that part exactly. Cast. We've got entitled mother, we've got the bratty kid, we've got my manager, Jackson, and we've got me, Gas Mask Gary. Here's how it went down. I was at work, sketching and waiting for someone to come to my register. I doodle a lot, at home or on the job, as at the time, I was doing this job mid-high school to early college, where I majored in art, specifically cartoons and animation. And then, some arrogant-looking mother with bad fashion taste walks in with her bratty weeaboo son. I think nothing of it, as people like this walk in all the darn time. But things start getting bad when he whines about wanting one of the more high-end Gundam Figma build kits near the display shelf in the back. They come to the register after arguing over which one to get. They decided on a highly coveted Unicorn Gundam with a metallic yellow-gold look on the plastic. Entitled Mom. Hello there, sir. We would like to purchase this toy. Me. Okay, let me scan this for you. I proceed to do so, and it popped up as a low-end $15 product that looked similar but was obviously different. I had a look of confusion on my face. Entitled Mom. What's the darn holdup? It's my son's birthday, and I don't want to ruin it for him. Me. Well, this product has the wrong price tag. It's coming up as $15 instead of $40. Well, it's just a toy. It's not worth much. Come on, just go with its current price. Me. Well, if I do, I'll get fired, and you might get arrested once my boss finds out. Entitled Brad. Mom, I want the cool robot. Shut up, sweetie. Mommy's talking to the big greedy man here. At this point, you could see how upset I was. See, what I did was I went to the shelf it was on and scanned the other box of the same kit, and what do you know? It was $40. So I told her and she flipped. She calls me some names that I definitely can't type out here. Entitled Mom with boiling blood. You jerk! You are ruining my little boy's special day. I just wanted to buy him a cool toy that he actually wants. I just sat on my chair while she yelled at me, cranked up my tunes on my Bluetooth earbuds, and didn't listen. I wasn't going to take crap from her. Eventually, she left me alone and went back to the shelves. Minutes later, she leaves, but the alarm goes off. These stupid people tried to shoplift and got caught. They had taken the Gundam kit and were taken in by the cops. I don't know the rest because I wasn't there, but I haven't seen them since, so maybe they were banned. Am I the jerk for telling my sister's friends she inherited her house when she says she bought it? My dad passed too young. He was only 65, never got to enjoy retirement. Doctor said stress heart attack. He was bedridden, passed a week later. That was 6 years ago. I was 30 and well into my IT career. He knew he was dying, asked me if I needed anything material. I said no, I just want him to live. He couldn't give me that. My mom felt the same, didn't want to live alone, so she lives with her sister, also widowed. My sister was 34, divorced, 2 kids, struggling with money. Dad left her his house and, with mom's blessing, most of his money. He gave me a generous sum for my future family, enough to my mom for the rest of her life. Sister asked me how to invest. I advised her. Now she coasts off her interest. She blogs, identifies as a writer. She tells her tween kids about how she worked and saved for her house. I get that you want to make your kids value working hard, but when she says that stuff around me, I cringe. I'm not going to embarrass her in front of her own kids, though. She asked me to design her website. She's my sister, so of course I said I'd do it. On her About Me, she lists herself as a writer who raised 2 kids on her own. True, who is business savvy and bought a huge house in a tough market. No mention that our parents spent decades paying for it. I say, sis, this is mom and dad's house and they paid for it. But she just goes, la 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 la, I'm not hearing you talk. I'm thinking, whatever. I now have my own family, wife and a son who's 2 to worry about. One day, my sister throws a party to celebrate a self-published book about recipes. She invites me and my family and lots of her friends. So we're having a good time talking about this and that. Some of her friends talk to me and they tell me how amazing my sister is. No problem there. They say how she's a genius for balancing 2 kids and saving up to buy her huge house. Apparently, she had been parlaying the fact that our dad has passed to say my mom is also a single mom. All I say is, well, I grew up in this house too. My mom and dad bought it. He passed, and my mom agreed with my dad to leave it to her. My mom lives with her sister upstate. Several of her friends tell me about how my sister is so amazing to buy such a nice big house and juggle being a single mom. Often I just said, I grew up in this house too. Later on, my sister texts me the next day how I was a jerk for telling her friends that my dad willed her the house. I ask, why am I a jerk? I was not being malicious, I was being accurate. She says that our dad wouldn't mind, and also she says property tax is huge, so technically she's paying for the house and should be credited for that. She says I should stop saying she inherited the house when people ask. I say I will refuse to say anything when asked about the house, but that I will not say inaccurate things. She says I'm being a jerk and a hater. Am I the jerk? Neighbors turn their house into a very loud public church service every Sunday, and their son is a creep. So we just had new neighbors move into the house next to ours, and they've been extremely annoying. Firstly, they convert their front garage and driveway into a church every Sunday. They line up chairs and invite people over and preach loudly on a podium. It literally lasts all day with catering and the works. When they're not doing this, they're loudly practicing their preach sermons in the garage throughout the week. Look, I have no issues with religious folk in general, but it's just so loud and annoying, to be honest. Like, can't they just go to a normal church instead of converting their house into one? Is this even legal to do so? Why subject your neighbors to this? Second, the family has a son, probably in his 20s, who harasses both me, female 25, and my older sister. He stares at us very creepily and stops us literally every time he sees us outside. He asks us really weird questions, trying to hit on us, I guess. He once chased my car as I was pulling out of the driveway to ask me what day it was. Recently, as I pulled up into the driveway, he stood behind my car on my property, staring at me and literally waiting for me to get out so he could speak to me. I was stuck in my car for literally 5 to 10 minutes to wait for him to leave, and he waited the whole time. I just got out, made eye contact with him while ignoring what he said, and stormed inside. Like, it's really getting in the way of my life. Now, I usually run from my car to my front door and the other way around so as to not be spoken to or stared at creepily. What really set me off recently was that I caught him staring at me through my window from a distance. Now I have to keep my curtains and blinds closed permanently, which is not the greatest thing for my mental health. This entire situation is making my anxiety spike so high, I really shouldn't feel unsafe in my own property. Other than all of this, there haven't been any other confrontations or issues with the family in general. It seems like they're really extroverted and have made attempts to get to know us, but I'm afraid if I accuse their son of this stuff, they'll deny it since they're children of God, or whatever religious folks say, or retaliate. I've daydreamed of blasting music from my car during their sermon, but I don't want to start drama. Any thoughts or advice? Set up cameras to catch anything just in case. They're fairly cheap, and you should document the creepiness in case it's needed for later. Call the city or the cops about the Sunday thing. I'm sure they are not zoned for church services, so it is a legitimate complaint. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you call the cops or try to get them to stop, or not? Please let us know. I'd go out there and mow my lawn while blaring some Cannibal Corpse. You being considerate of me? Two can play that game, boyo. Am I the jerk for ransacking my boyfriend's apartment after he stole my passport to prevent me from going on my trip? I, female 25, have been with my boyfriend Jake, male 34, for 8 months. Things were fine until I, against my better judgment, moved into his place a couple of months ago. Since then, he's been getting kind of possessive and protective. I immediately told him to cut that crap out because it's off-putting and things seem to get better. Anyway, I have a friend in Mexico who's getting married. I've been excited to fly down for her wedding since she told me she was engaged a year ago. However, Jake has made it clear that he doesn't want me to go. He says it's too dangerous, even though I've been there many times and I even lived there for a year. I speak Spanish, I have friends there, and I know my way around. No matter what I say, he doesn't want me to go. Then a couple of days ago, my passport went missing from my nightstand. I'm supposed to go tomorrow, so I wouldn't have time to get a new one. I looked everywhere, no luck. When I asked Jake about it, he behaved a little suspiciously, but I dismissed it because I couldn't believe he would actually take my passport to keep me from going. But he's been giving me some red flags, so I decided to have a thorough look around. When he went out this morning, I started going through everything. As I searched, I became increasingly certain that he took my passport. I started off carefully picking through drawers and cabinets, But as my anger grew, I became a lot less careful. I started turning out drawers, pried open a briefcase, made a total mess. But I found it. It was behind some books on the bookcases in his study. I never go into his study. He definitely put it there. Now he's furious with me for going through his things and ransacking his place. He said he would have given my passport back and there was no need for me to go crazy. I'm just angry that he took it to begin with, and I don't believe him when he says he was going to give it back. This is only my third serious relationship, and I have no perspective on this kind of thing. Am I the jerk for overreacting and ransacking my ex-boyfriend's place? Edit. Thanks for the replies. I guess I was still in a weird state of disbelief that he did that, and it made me question everything. Now that I've stopped shaking and have had time to think, talk to my mom, and to read through these replies, I feel kinda silly for even wondering if I did something wrong. Suffice it to say, it's over for good. I've blocked him on everything, and my dad and brother are over there getting what's left of my stuff. I'm going to try to put it out of my mind and focus on my awesome trip. Not the jerk. Move out immediately and don't look back. This is the start of a horrible relationship. He's starting lightly so that you get used to it. That you even question that you're a jerk for looking for your passport that he stole means that he's already succeeding. For your future safety, run. You are not in so deep that you can't get out. OP, thank you. I'm at my parents' house now, and my dad told me the exact same thing. It's good to hear it from other people. Can we get a standing ovation for Dad here? Gold star for being in your corner and protecting you. I know a lot of young people who wouldn't have been able to rely on their parents for help in this or a similar situation. Big Reddit love, Dad. Not the jerk. This is the beginning of a true crime podcast that's gonna freak me out for weeks. OP, my dad is awesome. Using my parking space without my permission? All good. You will be using it forever. So I'm living in Japan now, and here people ride bicycles a lot. You can't leave your bike anywhere and you have to pay for parking, between $1 and $2 per day. There are very few free parking areas for bicycles. Most people leave their bikes at the same place, so they pay monthly because it's cheaper and you have your own space. This started a couple of weeks ago. Someone in my building started having a guest who decided to steal my bicycle parking space whenever they came to visit. Sometimes they stayed the whole night, so I had to go to the station, pay $1, and come all the way home walking, which meant I would need to walk to the station the next day, getting up earlier, walking like 20 minutes to the station while carrying my heavy bag. All the bicycle spaces have a number, which means they are reserved for someone. Mine is 105, but this jerk decided to take mine whenever they came to visit. The second time this happened, I told the building manager, but they didn't do anything. The third time I saw the bicycle there, it was the same red expensive bicycle. I left a note in Japanese saying, "Please don't leave your bicycle here. This is my space and I'm using it every day." I found the note taped, with the tape I used to tape it on their bike, to my parking space, and it had some mean words in Japanese at the end. Basically, he was not only stealing my space, but making fun of me by insulting me. Fine. It's just fine. I probably wouldn't have done anything about it if he hadn't written those words. This triggered me and got the worst in me. This person did it again a couple of times, so I knew this would continue. I was thinking about buying another bicycle, a better, more expensive one I could use to go on cycling trips, so a good chain/lock was needed anyway. I bought one of the thickest they had at the store and decided to try its efficiency. I locked his bicycle next time I saw it there. It hasn't moved for the last 7 days. There were 2 notes. The first one was an aggressive note with more mean words and threats about going to the police, which I don't care. Let's go that way, buddy. Second note, days later, was an apology, and they begged for me to unlock the bike because they tried to break it, but they couldn't. I guess he has learned his lesson. I'm pretty sure he won't do it again, but I just want to enjoy this feeling of victory a couple of more days. I will free it in 2 to 3 days, I guess. Tell him he also needs to pay your parking fee for the month before you'll unlock it. He was using up your space, so he should also pay for it. OP. Oh, that's good. Didn't think about that. Am I the jerk for refusing to get on a flight? My boyfriend's parents paid for them, my boyfriend's siblings, and their significant others to all go on a flight to Cabo for spring break. Becky, his mom, hasn't seemed to like me for some reason. She always makes snide remarks about my parents' blue-collar jobs and my field being nursing. We get to the airport, and Becky got 7 other people's first-class tickets and me 1 coach ticket. She told me I was used to it and she had a free coach ticket, so I should be grateful for going. They all did their express check-ins and left me in the long line for me to think about what the heck was going on. I had to keep from crying the whole time in line. I got up to the counter and there was a baggage fee for me. My boyfriend at the time never once helped me through the coach line or said anything to his mom. I looked over at his mom's smug face as I was about to pay the check bag fee, and I let out all of my frustrations on the attendant and started crying. Basically, she said, "Don't go with that family, sweetie. They don't appreciate you." I continued to cry and took my luggage and got out of the line with a super sweet check-in woman. I was so upset on how I was being treated, and I started crying at my boyfriend at the airport about how his mother was treating me. I broke up with him at the airport, and his mother was so embarrassed. I told her what a jerk she was. My boyfriend has been blowing up my phone, saying how could I do that to his mother and just back out of a vacation very last minute and wasted everyone's time and money. Not the jerk. The check-in lady was correct. If you would have gotten on that flight, you would have been treated like this for the entire vacation. It was absolutely the right decision to stand up for yourself. As for wasting money, she said the ticket was free, and I'm sure she didn't spend much on your hotel accommodations. As far as wasting time, you wasted enough of your own time on a relationship with your boyfriend if he isn't going to stand up for you. They're going to say that you should be happy for any kind of vacation and not look down on a coach ticket, but his mother was being pointedly rude to you. I love this reply, and I'm glad OP didn't put up with it. Life's much too short to associate with people who want to treat you like crap and pretend you like it. Was the boyfriend actually planning on sitting in first class and leaving OP alone in coach? What a useless jerk. Oh, and then the biggest concern, with his girlfriend in tears, is his poor mom being embarrassed. I'm at a loss for words to describe this waste of oxygen. This is the reason it sucks to be in a relationship with people raised by narcissists. If they haven't realized how much their parents suck, they will just act like flying monkeys and gaslight you. They have no idea what reality is. They only know the worldview of their narcissistic parents. I served a table where the wife tried to talk down on me, but her husband was on my side. It was a couple and their teenage daughter. At first, the table seemed very rude. Right off the bat, the wife was trying to treat me like crap and asking ridiculous questions, but gotta give everyone good service. So they ordered appetizers right away, but needed some time to figure out entrees. I kept checking back and even dropped their apps, and they still hadn't decided. Okay, fine. I let them take their time, checked back to fill drinks, and they were finally ready after they finished their apps. They ordered ribs, a whole sunfish, and a beef short rib. Entrees came out, and I checked to see if everything is fine and that it tasted good. Everyone said yes, and just as I'm about to leave, the wife says, "When I ordered the fish, I wasn't expecting it to be a whole fish. If it's going to be a whole fish, you should advertise it and tell us." And here we go, with customers trying to be smarter than the server and telling the server the menu didn't say that. So I told her, "We do advertise it as a whole fish. On the menu, it clearly states the dish is a crispy whole sunfish." The wife starts to say something back, but her husband quickly shuts it down and said, "It's fine. You're not the one eating it. I am, because I ordered it." He turns to me and says, "It's fine. I wanted this, and it tastes amazing." At this point, his wife was looking very upset because she just failed at trying to be mean to her server. The rest of the dinner, the husband was extra nice to me and shut down anything else from his wife if she tried to treat me like crap. When I came to pre-bus their table, he told me he knew it was going to be a whole fish. He had just expected the fish to be lying flat on the plate, but he was still impressed with how amazing it looked. At our restaurant, the fish is presented standing up, but it's part of the experience of getting that fish. The man ended up tipping me 25%, and as they were leaving, I overheard him being annoyed with his wife and how she acted. It's an amazing feeling when someone at the table won't let their friends or family be mean to their server and shuts them down for it. Doesn't happen often. Am I the jerk for choosing to house one son and kicking out the other after finding out what he did to his brother? What's going on right now has been really difficult on everyone. My son Jack, 26 male, just left his wife of 3 years after finding out that she's been having an affair. He didn't want me to know the details at all, just insisted only me and him spend time together somewhere in public. I thought it was because he just didn't want anyone to know what was going on, but it was really because my other son, Andrew, 27 male, was living with me and he didn't want to see him. Jack told me he's been running out of money and can't afford the motel he's staying at right now, but he refused to come back to live with me while he goes through the divorce. He finally told me Andrew is the one his wife cheated with. To say I was disgusted and horrified is an understatement. That night, I gave Andrew a piece of my mind and told him he's no longer welcome in my home. The reason he was living with me was also because of his financial problems since he was out of work due to lockdown. This entire time, he knew what was going on, but acted like the innocent party until I confronted him. He pleaded with me not to throw him out when he has no place to go to, but I told him as of right now, I only have one kid because we sure as heck didn't raise our kids to betray their own family and involve themselves in someone else's marriage. Since he's been living with me a while, he was given a time frame to pack up his things and leave. Once he was out, Jack came to stay with me, but haven't heard the end of it from my ex-in-laws or his mom, who conveniently cannot house him either, for one thing because they're back in their home country and they're yelling at me for playing favorites with my kids and punishing Andrew when he was already in a rough spot. They believe, as their father, I should have mediated between them so they could learn to live together. But I wasn't about to put Jack through that. He wants nothing to do with Andrew, and I feel like I need to respect that, not make them hug it out and make up. I'm also just very angry at Andrew, and frankly, don't want to be around him at all either. Yes, right now he's stuck crashing at different friends' houses. He keeps begging to come back because everything has been hard. Does it make me a jerk to not help him out? Not the jerk. Andrew can go live with his brother's ex-wife since he wants to be with her so bad. I'd never want to put my kid in a situation like that either. I respect you for thinking of your son's feelings. A betrayal like that, and I'd never want to look at that jerk again. It's one thing to be cheated on, but cheated on with your own brother had to suck. And for him to knowingly and willingly hook up with his brother's wife? Nope. I personally wouldn't claim him either. Not the jerk. OP. My kids have done many things in the past that have really upset me beyond belief. However, this was the first time in my life I was truly unable to look at one after finding out what he had done. I just couldn't do it. It didn't feel fair to Jack for me to try pushing him to make amends with the last person he wants to see right now. He cries himself to sleep every night, and during the day, he's just so detached from everything. It's hard to see your son hurting that way and not to be angry at the one responsible for it, his ex and brother. Am I the jerk for being angry with my fiancé over the prank he pulled? I, 28 female, and my fiancé, 28 male, have been together for 8 years. We met during college and are both really excited for the future. He has a twin brother that lives overseas. They look exactly very closely alike. It's hard to tell the difference at times. I've met his brother a few times over the years. He hasn't been able to visit due to lockdown. My family was having a large reunion this past weekend. My fiancé complained about the reunion and told me he could not attend. I told him that it would mean a lot to me and he could meet more of my relatives. The day of the reunion, he tells me that he will meet me there. I get to the reunion and I see him sitting in his car. He was wearing a baseball hat and seemed in a good mood. While we were chatting with family members, my aunt asked him what he did for a living and he answered. I started to see something off, but kept my mouth shut. When I got home, I saw my fiancé sitting on the couch playing a video game. I asked if he had a good time at the reunion, and he told me he did. I then asked for him to tell me what my cousin's name was. He thought about it for a long minute and then started laughing. He told me that his twin brother attended the reunion, and he was dropped off by a friend. I was so angry with him that I asked him to leave so I could think everything through. He went to stay with a friend, and I'm still so devastated that he would pull this kind of prank on me. My parents are very upset with him and are being very supportive. He thinks I'm being dramatic and there was no harm in what he did. Am I the jerk for being angry with my fiancé over the prank he pulled? Not the jerk. That wasn't a prank, but a horrible stunt attempt for him to avoid a family reunion. I would evaluate this relationship and ask if pulling that prank was really worth upsetting his future in-laws, not to mention how the extended family will feel if they find out this stunt. Yeah, not the jerk. It's honestly really weird though. It's like they watched way too many kids shows where the twins swap places and thought it would still be hilarious even though they're grown men. Not the jerk. And remember this rule. A prank is only funny if both people are left laughing. Just because he thinks it's harmless doesn't mean that you do. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. This is why you never try to reenact a 90s sitcom in real life. Am I the jerk for not letting my niece be the flower girl and instead having my cat be the flower boy? My husband, 35 male, and I, 29 female, are getting married in May. It's important to note that him and my in-laws are incredibly wealthy and practically throw money around like it's nothing. They paid for our wedding in full. My sister, 34 female, and I were always close, but once I started dating my fiancé, she started distancing herself from me, and when I confronted her about it, she claimed that she felt like I was becoming snobby and rude with my new lifestyle, and that it would be best for her mental health if we went low contact. We haven't talked that much for the past 3 years because of this, and I respect her choice. Last December, at my family reunion, I announced my engagement, and everyone congratulated me except for my sister. I didn't think much of it, but it still hurt a lot. 2 months ago, I invited my parents to see the wedding venue, and this is when I brought up the idea of making my cat the flower boy. Everyone who was there at the time, my husband, in-laws, and parents, all thought it was a great and cute idea. So I bought a white dress for him, and we've been practicing his walk down the aisle since then. No one else knew about this, but about 2 weeks ago, my sister called me out of the blue to discuss my wedding with me. This was extremely weird, but I thought this was a chance for us to get close again. Once she brought up the flower boy, or flower girl though, I knew where the conversation was going. She has 3 kids, who are 8, 6, and 3. She brought up the idea of the oldest being the flower girl, and I told her what my plan was and that it was set in stone that my cat would be the flower boy. She sounded shocked and asked why I didn't think of my niece, and I just told her that she didn't cross my mind when thinking about it. She went off on this whole tangent about how I was a terrible sister, daughter, and aunt, then hung up on me. A while later, I started getting phone calls from my family about how selfish I was being and that I was making a dumb choice. She made a Facebook post about the phone call. I called her back the next day to confront her about it, and she said that the money really got to my head if I thought of a stupid cat instead of my own niece, and I told her that once she had her own wedding, she could make her own daughter the flower girl. This hit a nerve for her, as she had kids out of wedlock and has been struggling financially for a long time, so a wedding for her is unattainable. I also uninvited her to my wedding, and since then, lots of family members have come to basically shame me for my decision to make my cat the flower boy instead of my niece, and that I should re-invite my sister as she's been depressed ever since I uninvited her. This whole ordeal has really taken a toll on me, and even my parents called to say that I should have just changed my plans or had a small ceremony afterwards where my cat was the flower boy, but left the main event with my niece as the flower girl. So, am I the jerk for making my cat the flower boy? Let me get this straight. She goes low contact, but demands privileges as she wishes? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You're living my dream. I wanted my old man, 18-year-old black cat we rescued when he was a tiny kitten, to be in a carrier so he would be part of the wedding in some way. He passed before I was able to do so. Please do this. It's going to be an amazing memory for you to always have. Whoever's throwing a fit over this doesn't deserve to be at your wedding, to pet your cat, or eat your food. I'd start snipping the list. Get your kitty some amazing cat trees, tons of treats, catnip galore with the money you end up saving. OP. He's also pretty old. Adopted him from a shelter he had been at for a few years, since most people want kittens instead of older cats. But he's the sweetest boy and loves being around people. Rest in peace to your cat. You sound like a great owner. Karen cousin tried to steal my boyfriend. I, 18, male, have been with my boyfriend, 18, male, and we've been together since May of 2019. Last year, when everything started to shut down, my parents offered to let my cousin, Amy, 18, female, stay with us as she is immunocompromised, and her parents are both doctors, where mine are both able to work from home. Everything was fine for a while. We mostly kept to ourselves, did our schoolwork, and spent time online with our friends. A few weeks in, I was sat in the kitchen on FaceTime with my boyfriend. Usually I would have done this in my room, but my dad's office is next to my room, and he was on an important work call. She came in to get something and must have glanced over my shoulder and seen him. When I had ended the call, she asked who he was. I told her he was my boyfriend, and she just made the comment that he was cute. At the time, it didn't seem like it was going to be a big deal. But after that, whenever I tried to have a call with my friends or my boyfriend, she would come into my room. She tried to play it off as wanting to ask me a question, but it was happening too often, and she would keep asking, "Don't I get to say hi?" which I found odd. We go to different schools, and she had never met my friends or shown any interest in them before this point. And if my phone rang while we were in the same room, she would always ask if it was the cute boyfriend, and she started making comments about how she wished she had met him first. I asked her to stop as it was making me feel uncomfortable. It got worse. She found him on Facebook and started sending flirty messages to him. He blocked her and she made a second account and continued until he blocked her again. She then got into my phone and found his number and started texting and calling him. She would leave voicemails and it was always about how good she would be as his girlfriend and how he should leave me for her and everything she would do for him. He blocked her number. I told my parents what she was doing and showed them the proof, and they told her that she had to leave because she was making me so uncomfortable. I've not spoken to her since. My extended family are now trying to make plans for this summer, hoping everyone can get together. I'm refusing to go to anything she's at because I feel she would just try again. Everyone except my parents are telling me that I'm ruining the plans just to be spiteful, as she has apologized. A non-sincere apology when she realized my parents were serious about her going back home. I feel like a jerk because it means we can't have any family plans and I'm essentially making everyone choose between us. But I don't want to be around her if she's going to keep making me uncomfortable. You want the police involved? Okie dokie. So, the day after Christmas, about 10 years ago, my brother called me up and asked me for some assistance setting up some of his new computer equipment. He lived down the road from a store that specialized in discount china, so naturally it was extremely busy. Busy as in cars were parked everywhere, including on the grass in front of the store, and it was impossible to see around the corner if someone wanted to pull out of the furthest exit. Unfortunately, the speed limit, 50 miles per hour, is also extremely high on the road as well, even if you have to really try to accelerate to get to 50 miles per hour by the time you pass the store. So I decided to play it safe and was doing roughly half the speed limit, perhaps 30 miles per hour, while going around the corner of the store. Even at this speed, of course, some guy decided to pull out without checking, and I couldn't stop in time to avoid hitting him. Now, I was driving an older Mitsubishi that already had some damage, and he had a small dent in his fender. And come on, it's still Christmas, right? So I get out of the car, take a look at the damage, and turn around to see a furious, older, red-faced gentleman in front of me. Right after I tell him that it doesn't really look like much damage, so there's no need to contact the police, he proceeds to scream in my face about how I was speeding and this is all my fault. Oh no, honey. A young woman driving by herself may appear to be easily intimidated, but I was trying to be nice. If you want the police involved, let's do it, buddy. I called the non-emergency line, explained there was a very minor car accident and that the other driver was insisting that it was my fault, so I would feel better if the police were involved. The dispatcher got my information, stopped for a moment, and then quietly thanked me for calling the appropriate number. 911 was hardly necessary, and then told me that she also felt it would be safer for me if the police were dispatched. After a 30-minute wait, an officer showed up to the scene. I, not being a total moron, sat quietly in my car and waited for him to come over to me. The other driver felt it was necessary to leap out of his vehicle and run over to the officer and start screaming and gesturing wildly. I didn't catch what was said, but I did see the look on the cop's face, and I was getting more and more amused. After being clearly told to get back into his car, the cop came over to me and asked me what happened. I told him what was going on, and that not only had I not deliberately sped up to go the speed limit, I had actually slowed down because of how busy the business was. He nodded and went back to measure the skid marks on the road and confirmed he believed I was actually doing about 25 and complimented my thinking on safe driving in this specific situation. He then proceeded to write the other driver a ticket, and the other driver pulled out of the parking lot a second time with his window down, giving me the bird. At this point, the cop came over to me, explained that he wrote it up as the other driver's fault for more than $1,000 due to the damage on his fender. He also stated that, "Darling, I don't do this often, but I believe you should take that man's insurance company for every dime you can get. Thanks for insisting we call the police." Make me hourly instead of salary because you're afraid I'll stop selling after I hit my commission cap? Okay. Years ago, I was an inside sales rep for a simultaneously large and tiny company in a niche market. The quotes are because it was at least equally outside sales. I just didn't go outside except to smoke. I've since quit. They had about 50 branches across the country of various sizes. The smallest was literally one guy who processed local orders and used hotshots for delivery. The largest had about 50 employees. I made 6 for my branch. I was literally the first salesman with a background in anything resembling sales that my branch had ever hired. They had always hired the least socially awkward industry professionals they could prior to me, and they had had their CSR doing the selling for over a year until I came on. so expectations were high. When they hired me, we had somewhat heated negotiations over the comp plan. It was a $42,000 base salary plus commission with a $56,000 OTE and $65,000 cap. I asked what I was meant to do after I hit the cap, to which they replied, "Continue to do your job," as if I wasn't going to have a problem with generating new business for free. I said that I was going to need a bonus structure beyond the cap if they wanted me to do any more hunting after that point. I made it clear that I'd service my accounts when they called, but I wanted to be clear that they were going to be disappointed if they expected me to make outbound calls looking for new business after I had maxed my comp plan, and that I'd definitely enjoy the extra time at home with my family over the holidays. They said they understood, and we went through the onboarding. I worked almost exactly 40 hours for almost 2 months, early October to early December, before I had jury duty and missed a day. My check was about $150 light compared to what it had been, so I complained to payroll. Benefits kicked in at 90 days. That's when I found out I was making $21 an hour and was not, in fact, pulling a salary. Presumably, this was to force me into the office, as we didn't have remote access to the local network that logged our hours, just the ordering/inventory software. I didn't even get a prorated Christmas bonus because that counts as benefits, and you have to work 90 days to receive those. Cue malicious compliance. I discovered that if I left the house 30 minutes early, my 80-minute commute would take less than 25. So instead of showing up around 8:30 and chilling in my car for a bit, so I was working at 9, I was there at 7 with the warehouse guy sending emails. I started working through lunch as I ate at my desk, as opposed to burning an hour off campus or in the break room. I didn't even realize I was losing an hour a day to lunch. I also discovered that if I stayed till 6:30, I'd get home by 7, as opposed to leaving a little after 5 and getting home around 6:30. So I spent an extra 5 hours a week away from home and worked an extra 22 compared to the 35 I was getting paid for before I figured it out. With the overtime, I was clocking north of $2,000 more than intended every month. And oddly enough, no one even noticed until the internal auditor verified W-2s and noticed that I made significantly more than the branch manager. I didn't hit my commission cap until late November, so I spent the rest of the year training with the tech and/or the warehouse guy. Both of them smoked. They tried to put me on the same salaried comp plan I had originally agreed to, but it was enough of a pay cut to qualify for constructive dismissal, so I got to quit and still collect unemployment for a month before I found another gig. My daughter is demanding I fire her ex because she broke up with him. The boy in question is named Jaden, 22 male. Me, 45 female, and my husband, 46 male, have known Jaden for 15 years since he's the son of one of our friends. My daughter, Tati, 21 female, and him have had the same friend group for a few years now. In college, they befriended this girl named Paige, 21 female. My hubby and I loved Jaden with all of our hearts. Tati is our only kid, and we thought of him as our son. We believed they would get married one day, so I decided to teach him the family business since he was 17 years old, so that he could take care of it one day. Tati is not interested. I hired Paige for a while, but she ended up quitting because she had to take care of her mother because she broke her ankle. A year ago, Tati told us that she and Jaden were expecting, and while we were worried because they were too young, we were happy for them. Sadly, she lost it and ended up very depressed. I saw Jaden doing everything she wanted. As you can imagine, my daughter began to snap easily and started to treat the poor boy badly. We talked to her. We told her it wasn't fair, but she wouldn't listen. She said we didn't understand, nor did Jaden. During a fight, Tati broke up with Jaden. It was pretty common during those days, and he always came back saying sorry, but that time, he didn't. He kept showing up to work. He kept talking to my husband and I, but it seemed that he was done with Tati. And as unfair as it sounds, I don't blame him. Eventually, he started to date Paige, and this, obviously, enraged my daughter. She demanded I no longer leave the business to Jaden because he wouldn't be family anymore. I stupidly said yes because my daughter was grieving and heartbroken. Jaden understood. I thought that was it. Tati never demanded anything else until 2 weeks ago when Jay told us that Paige was expecting. I guess it triggered Tati, so she demanded again that I fire Jaden because he has no business around us anymore. I don't know why, but I declined. It doesn't seem fair. Jaden has proven to me that he's cut out for this. He knows what he's doing. He's a good boss. He's smart and people trust him. So I said no. Tati went to her dad crying, and my husband demanded I fire Jaden ASAP, but I said no again. He said he would fire him himself then, and I said he wasn't allowed because the business belongs to my side of the family and my dad was still alive, so he had the last word. My husband keeps telling me that I'm the jerk for choosing Jaden over Tati, so maybe, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your daughter is trying to make this guy's life horrible. Why? Because she's upset that she was toxic towards him. She's upset because she broke up with him and he didn't come crawling back after dealing with her snapping at him. Sounds like she was mistreating him, by the way. I would be disgusted with my husband for wanting to enable her malicious and downright disturbing behavior. And of course, I would find my daughter's behavior deplorable if she acted this way. She's hurting people because they didn't enable her behavior. She's lashing out over what? Facing the consequences of her own actions? I'm sorry for her loss, but grief is not an excuse to treat other people poorly. Your daughter needs to grow up and, quite frankly, recognize that the world does not revolve around her. She seems to think otherwise. Not the jerk. There's no way you should fire an expectant father just because his ex is throwing a tantrum. Apart from being unethical, that could expose your business to severe legal and social liability. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you fire him or not? Please let us know. I'd exile my daughter is what I'd do. Was it wrong of me to pay for a separate hotel room because I hated my husband's surprise? Me, 40 female, and my husband, Sam, 43 male, have 3 kids. After the birth of my youngest son, Sam and I almost never went on a romantic trip alone, as it was very difficult to reconcile for several reasons. When my youngest son turned 18 and moved because of college, I was very excited because we always agreed to go to France to stay in a wonderful hotel in a fancy room because it was my dream, and with 3 kids, I couldn't do it totally. My husband then asked to make a surprise. He would run after everything, booking restaurants, booking a hotel, plane tickets, but I told him which hotel I wanted to stay and the type of room, as it was always my dream trip with him. We have an excellent financial condition, so we could easily pay for it. We arrived at the hotel. He spoke to the receptionist and we went to the room. I was in shock when I found my kids and mothers waiting for us. My excitement went downhill from there, and honestly, I couldn't hide it because it wasn't what I imagined it to be, and it got worse when he said that because there were too many people to pay, he got cheaper rooms and that our sons would stay with us because it was cheaper. I tried to keep up appearances, but I gave my husband that look, and when I could, I went to the receptionist and asked for a better room for me. I paid with my service bonus, which is something my husband and I don't share, agreed between us. My husband was super annoyed, saying that this was a rude thing to do and that he wanted to have a family time, but couldn't afford something more expensive. In addition to having reacted badly to his surprise, it would be everyone's first time, and he wanted to give this moment for the first time at the same time to everyone. He didn't even want to go to my room. I loved visiting all the places, but having the presence of 5 more people, it was extremely discouraging. I love my kids, my mother, and my mother-in-law, but it was my dream to have a romantic trip for 2. It is worth saying, every year, except during lockdown, we travel to another country. We have never been to France. The trip was okay. My husband and I were obviously not doing very well. When we got home, he said my attitude of paying for a more expensive suite was childish and made everyone uncomfortable, and that my discouragement spoiled our trip. Am I the jerk? Extra. Yes, when I said I wanted to go to France, I said I wanted a romantic trip only for 2. Extra. As I understand the reason, he said he did it because it would be our first family trip after 2 years without traveling, and that we could do this trip now and do one in a few months, just the 2 of us. Not the jerk. Your husband knew exactly what trip you were expecting. He knew what hotel and room you were expecting. He decided to change it and was upset when you weren't okay with him unilaterally changing the plans. I'm sure his logic was, we do a family trip someplace every year, so this should be that trip. Why wouldn't it be? But if he wanted to be that logic, it needed not to be a surprise. It needed to be a discussion, because he knew that you guys had waited to do this trip until there were no kids left in the house. His attitude of thinking you had spoiled the trip when he was the one who had is a problem. You specified you wanted a romantic trip for 2 to France. He invited your kids and mothers along as a surprise. You're not the jerk, but in my opinion, paying for a more expensive hotel room is the least of your problems. I would be asking him, why did he invite others along? and think you would like it when he knew you wanted and were expecting a romantic trip for two. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that she is spending her child support money irresponsibly? My girlfriend and her daughter's father broke up almost 2 years ago. Their daughter just turned 3, and she put in a petition for child support a little over a year ago because when they broke up, she had to buy mostly all new things for their kid. The father agreed to help, but ended up leaving my girlfriend to pay for everything alone. Support was finally settled, and he owes her $6,000 in back pay, and instead of paying it back in increments, he offered to pay it in full. My girlfriend was so excited, she said she was going to pay off credit cards that she fell back on because she struggled financially, as well as use the money to find an apartment and get clothes for herself because she hasn't gotten any new clothes since she had her daughter because she couldn't afford it, except for things I've bought her. Then said the rest will go in savings for her daughter. I told her that all the money needs to go in savings for her daughter or be used for things for their kid because that's her daughter's money, not hers. She gave me a pretty nasty glare and said, "No, this is my money. I'm being reimbursed for struggling alone since I put in the petition. I can spend the money however I please, and I'm not doing it recklessly, so why does it matter?" She was pretty upset and has been pretty short with me since. I think what she's doing is pretty crappy behavior, while she thinks I'm the jerk for overstepping and not considering how much financial hardship she's gone through. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk and if I'm being inconsiderate, or if I was right and she is being irresponsible. ETA. After reading all of your comments, I now see where I am the jerk. I made the mistake of looking at this back pay as new child support payments and not reimbursements for the hardship she's gone through. I will be giving my girlfriend a much-needed apology and won't budge into business that isn't mine. I need to realize that when she told me it wasn't a welcoming for my opinion, but she just wanted an ear to express her excitement and gratefulness to. Thank you, everyone. You're the jerk. Child support is meant to mitigate the costs of raising a kid alone. She's been making ends meet without that support, and now she's using the money exactly as it's meant to be used. He has not been paying, and now she is literally being reimbursed for carrying the cost alone. Goodness, she had to go into debt to support her baby, and you think she shouldn't use the money to pay off the debt? That's absurd. Paying off credit cards, finding a home for her and her daughter, and basic necessities like clothing that she sacrificed while spending all her money on her kid when she had no support are completely appropriate uses for child support money, not to mention important ones. Do you think she should just stay in debt and not find a home for her and her kid? Neither of those options are good for the kid in the long run. You sound incredibly out of touch. So, she's recklessly spending child support money on things like getting stable housing for the kid and paying off debt she incurred while supporting the kid on her own? You're the jerk. Her finances aren't your business. Am I the jerk for having the same standards for my daughter as my sons? I, 48 female, have 5 kids. The twins are 16, male, and my triplets are 15, male, male, and female. Currently, the 16-year-old male twins share a room. The 15-year-old male twins have a room, and the single girl has a room. All kids could have their own rooms, but they chose to share. This year, my boys all came together. They asked if they could all pool their birthday money for a room makeover. They wanted their beds and clothing to be in one room and desks in the other room for a gamer's paradise, and have been saving last year's birthday presents and have been saving their Christmas money for the last 2 years. I painted their gaming room a dark gray with leftover paint from my parents' renovation, but added LEDs as the main light source on the ceiling and under the desks and in each shelf. Made the closet into a built-in bookshelf for video games and their figurines, along with wall shelves. Added a couple of mini fridges for drinks, a mini snack vending machine, and painted their desks to match. Then changed their sleeping and clothing arrangements. I did not spend any additional money outside of the budget, and boys all helped with manual labor of moving stuff and painting furniture that my daughter did witness. Now my daughter is jealous I didn't do her room as well. We explained that the boys have been saving money and birthday and Christmas presents, and she asked to make a total room makeover plan too. So we did, and it would cost about the same as what the boys did. She wanted all new furniture along with painting it and crafting setup. I told her if she wanted exactly this room, she would need to contribute this much amount of dollars, and even came up with a plan if she wanted to do extra chores. All kids get this opportunity. But if she didn't want new furniture, We could repurpose the old stuff we have between storage and what's currently in there, and she could afford it this year. Edit. Since people are assuming it's huge amounts of money, overall her room would cost $1,200 with new furniture. Without new furniture and repurposing some of our old stuff, I'm only asking her to contribute $200, which is one birthday and one Christmas money. The boys bought things for the room with money from the past few years, like the lights one year, and I didn't buy the decor. It was all repurposed or built from other things. My husband thinks I'm not being fair to her because there were 4 boys to save money and there's only one of her. I said we shouldn't be picking favorites and all kids should be at the same standard. And yes, there's one of her, but I didn't buy the boys any new furniture and she wants all new stuff, not renovated. Well, we were doing early Easter at my parents' and my daughter asked Grandpa for money because I wasn't being fair and favoring the boys. I stopped that immediately and told my dad the entire story. Now my family is split on the verdict. My mom says I'm the jerk for the same reason of my husband, but my dad says I'm teaching her a valuable lesson on budgeting and repurposing. So my husband and I, who regularly frequent here, are wondering, am I the jerk for keeping my daughter at the same standard as my sons? Edit to the edit. My boys have offered to help her repurpose old stuff and even help her purchase the renovation materials, but she wants the new furniture. All the kids have the same hobbies except video games. She'll join her brothers on multiplayer when they need a fifth, but otherwise says it's a waste of time. When I asked why she needs new things instead of repurposing, her exact quote was, "It won't look like the TikTok if I repurpose stuff. I need new stuff." You're the jerk. I think your husband makes a good point. 4 people can save up quicker than 1 and can make 4 times income of 1 person. It's great that the boys chose to share, but realistically, this isn't a choice for your daughter. With this in mind, I don't agree that she is being treated fairly. I think asking her to save 1/4, as each of the boys did, would be reasonable. Your title is misleading. It's not really the same standard for exactly the reason your husband pointed out. There's 1 of her and 4 of them. She can't choose to share the way they did because she doesn't have sisters. You're the jerk. Valet closes when the restaurant closes, Karen. Happened a few weeks ago, but I'm still salty. A large group comes in at 6:30 to celebrate a birthday. It's 15 people. They have a good time and they leave at 9:30. We are a higher-end restaurant in a large city and offer complimentary valet service, which is practically impossible for our neighboring restaurants to provide. We've been operating in this location for years and have been grandfathered in. About half of the party decides they're not done for the evening and walk to one of the local bars still serving alcohol. We close at 11 p.m. Valet comes in to check with me at 11:45. The restaurant is empty and he has 4 sets of keys that no one has claimed and he's leaving for the night. I take the keys, place them in the safe, leave, go home and relax. The next morning at work, there's a ton of voicemails. All from the guests that showed up at 1:30 a.m. to pick up their keys to find Valet closed. Each message is increasingly ruder. I call them to reassure them that we have their keys in the safe and they all lose it on me. 2 people arrive, reeking of booze, complaining that they couldn't drive home and had to take an Uber, and then demanded money as compensation. I was firm. I'm sorry that you were inconvenienced by the situation, but the valet service is for our restaurant only, and there's no way for them to contact you if you leave and go to a second location. Another group shows up and does the same. Now they're all standing outside the restaurant like a bunch of money-hungry jackals. To be honest, they were lucky they didn't get booted. 3 more people show up. It was like a video game, and this was the final boss. All 7 accost me with one angry woman as their ringleader. She demands $800 in gift cards, which absolutely will not happen. She then tells me she has recorded evidence of other managers resolving this issue with gift cards. First, no, and second, extortion. She then threatens my job, telling me she knew the owner. I ask her, who's the owner? Instead of answering, she just demanded to know if I was going to take responsibility for their inconvenience by reimbursing them with gift cards. No. Then she told me she worked for the city and was going to press charges. Okay, do that. She then DM'd my chef and owner on Instagram demanding a full refund for everyone's dinner, plus hotel accommodations and Ubers. The jerk told me to my face that she had to break into her own apartment and then demanded $300 for a hotel stay that never happened. She wanted $5,000 compensation for being too stupid to realize that valet is not a 24-hour service. The audacity astounds me. Edit to add. You know when you see a sign posted that spells out the obvious and very clear terms and realize some dum-dum is the reason for said sign? Come visit my restaurant. Valet has a very clear and direct sign alerting people that the valet is a complimentary service provided by the restaurant and closes when the restaurant closes. Dummies. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I'm not going to eat the same food he does anymore? My husband has been diagnosed with Crohn's disease 2 months ago, which means he has a very restricted diet, at least in the beginning. That's mostly chicken, fish, red meat, plain rice, pork, soup, eggs, no fried stuff, almost no vegetables, no fast food, no milk, no drinks, no seasoning or spice, no juice, no snacks whatsoever. Only bananas for fruits, and that's about it. It's been a very hard diet for him, and to be supportive, I started eating with him this stuff and only these in front of him and inside the house until he gets much better. It's exhausting eating the same food every day, but we've been experimenting. Sometimes roasted chicken, boiled chicken, roasted fish, carrot soup, etc. And here's the problem. Although he was getting much better, I was getting much worse because I can't handle it anymore. No french fries, no hamburgers, no takeouts, no salad, no lettuce, no tomatoes, etc. And I just can't. It's too suffocating for me. It's almost the same food every day. Every time I sit at the dinner table with him, I force myself to go through it. He asks me if everything's okay, and I tell him there's nothing wrong. I then started slowly giving up and preparing some side meals only for me. He gets really upset and jealous and can't resist when he sees me eating them, so he tries to get his hand on them multiple times, and I push him away and stop him, reminding him that it's for me, not for him, and he has to follow his diet for a few more months. 2 days ago, I completely gave up and entirely ate nothing of his food, only stuff like fries with sauce, etc. There were leftovers in the fridge, and I caught him eating them. He ate like 2 dishes. I yelled at him, and he said it's fine, nothing was going to happen. 5 hours later, he got explosively sick and constantly was throwing up and in pain. He went to the hospital the next day. The doctor gave him new additional medicine, immunosuppressants. When we were back home, he was very mad at me and said that it was partially my fault for not being supportive enough and for doing what I did in front of him knowing his condition. I told him that I'm not the one with Crohn's disease. He's an adult and he should control himself. I also told him that I don't care if he gets hospitalized anymore. It will be his fault. He's very upset now and is claiming that he would have done the same for me if it was the other way around. I don't believe him. Am I the jerk? Edit. I also want to say that we both cook in the house. The problem isn't who cooks. The problem is what do we cook and what food can we have and keep inside the house. Note, I know that we're both upset with each other right now and I accept your judgments, but please, for goodness sake, stop calling my husband names in the comments. It just hurts. You have got to remember that he is on this restrictive diet for like 6 months at least. It's hard to only eat boiled chicken and stuff like this for 6 months. I almost went insane just after a month from it, and I was taking fast food breaks outside and behind his back sometimes. It's very restrictive and depressing. I'm not excusing anyone, but now that I calmed down a bit, please stop insulting my husband. Final edit. This comment section had extremely diverse opinions, ranging from everyone sucks here to nobody sucks. From what I understand, he should resist the temptation more than this, and I'm still mad that he did what he did. But I'm not excusing myself from the situation. It was my fault for putting dishes, one of them was his favorite, in front of him like that. It was my fault for poor communication when I kept pushing his hands off the plates instead of actually talking to him. It was wrong to say that cruel line about me not caring if he goes to the hospital. It's not easy being sick with Crohn's disease and being on a restrictive diet like this after you used to eat all that you want. I'm going to apologize. We're both jerks in different ways. The truth is that this diagnosis was hard on both of us, especially him. He has to adjust to this new whole lifestyle for a while, and he doesn't even do his favorite things anymore, like working out as an example, due to a bland diet and exhaustion. But this is not going to divorce us. We're going to work it out no matter what. We still love each other. Our relationship has been perfect otherwise, and we're going to continue supporting each other even in the face of these challenges. To the people who sent me encouraging messages about joining groups for Crohn's and your different experience with dealing with IBDs and IBS, thank you so much. We're going to see into that. I wish you luck in your journey with these diseases. To the people who lack sympathy and keep insulting my husband even after I told them to stop, forget you. Just because I was angry for a moment and now I'm calm doesn't mean I'm going to let you insult him. Yes, he's an adult, 27. He should control himself, but just try eliminating 95% of food with no choice for almost a year. It will take a toll on you. You have provided him with the food he can eat. You were supportive at the start, which was very helpful, I'm sure. But you don't have Crohn's, he does. My husband is diabetic, and I have modified our diets accordingly. However, I still eat other food too. My husband actually doesn't want to limit what I can eat because he loves me. It is unreasonable for your husband to demand that you two stay on such a severe diet when it is unnecessary. Also, he's an adult and ate 2 plates of the food he knew was bad for him. Not your fault. He did it to himself, not the jerk. Am I the jerk for keeping my home too warm and not wanting to adjust it for my boyfriend? I, 31 female, have severe chronic anemia, a result of which is I struggle to keep myself warm and am always cold, even with my iron pills and transfusions when my levels drop too low. It sucks, but it has become a part of my life that I'm used to. I keep my flat at 28 degrees Celsius, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and never have it lower than that, as lower is uncomfortable for me. And even at 28, I need to have a hoodie and socks on for additional warmth. It means my gas bill is higher than the average person, but what can you do? My boyfriend, 30 male, attempted to stay overnight for the first time during the weekend and was horrified by the temperature, complaining of being too hot constantly and wanting me to turn it down. I apologized, but said I really couldn't, explaining how it felt painful if I got too cold. For anyone who doesn't suffer as badly as me with anemia, imagine the pins and needles you get when playing in the snow for hours. That's me when my temperature drops too low. I finally caved and lowered it to 25 degrees Celsius, throwing on an extra layer and offered him ice water and to give him a desktop fan to try and keep him cool while also staying warm myself, but he was clearly uncomfortable and ended up going home at around 1 a.m. as he couldn't take it anymore. I was upset by this, but didn't try to stop him, as if he was that uncomfortable, there was no point in him suffering. On Monday, he texted me, telling me I seriously needed to go see the doctor if I was that cold all the time. And I tried to explain I've been to the doctors about this, and there isn't much we can do, as we don't know what causes my anemia no matter what tests we run. He has told me that he can't stay overnight if it's going to be that warm, and compared my home to a lizard's terrarium, which I admit hurt a little, though I know he was likely meaning it as a joke. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and been cold. I'm cold when outside or in the office or in other people's homes, so why not? I just like my home being a place I can warm up a little though. Maybe I was a rude host. I should have put his needs first. Not the jerk, but you two are not temperature compatible. I mean, he is a little for being upset when it's a medical condition, but I empathize. I couldn't sleep with a room that hot. I'd be devastated if that was the reason I had to end it with my current partner, but it just isn't feasible, and it's ridiculous to have the person with a medical condition compromise. It being a medical condition doesn't mean he can't be upset about it. He's entitled to his feelings. That said, he shouldn't have pressured her to turn it down. That's ridiculous. He should have just gone home. I couldn't sleep in it either. I'm leaning towards no jerks here. 28 degrees Celsius is very hot, especially for an indoors temperature, so I understand why your boyfriend wouldn't be able to sleep like that. I know I wouldn't. However, you have medical conditions that make it necessary, so neither of you are in the wrong. His comments might have been a bit unnecessary, but they did, like you said, seem like a joke. He told me we didn't have to see each other, so I didn't. A few years ago, I started seeing this guy casually. We both explicitly agreed when we started that we weren't looking for a relationship. That went on great for a bit, but a few months in, things started to get ambiguous. He started acting really inconsistently, sometimes acting and talking like we were in a relationship, and sometimes ignoring me or getting really flaky. Now, personally, I wasn't actively looking for a relationship because I had a lot of things to focus on at the time, but I wasn't opposed to it either. It was good either way, so long as I knew what was going on between us. In hindsight, the ambiguity was itself a red flag that I should have taken at face value regardless of relationship status. But hey, we learn best through experience, and I didn't realize it at the time. So after a few weeks of him seesawing back and forth particularly hard, I had had enough and decided to talk to him about it. Honestly, I was fine either being casual or in a relationship. I just couldn't tolerate being in between, and I wanted to set up boundaries. When I tried to ask him about what he wanted to do though, he blew up. Basically tried to convince me it was all in my head, that I had made up his behavior. When I pushed him for clarity on what he saw us as, he responded that we're just two people who see each other when they feel like it, nothing more. Clearly not what he had been communicating before, but I did ask for clarification, so I get what I get. If he had said it without the gaslighting, I probably would have been okay with it, but at that point I was ticked off. So I said okay, talked with him for a few minutes, led him to the door, smiled goodbye, then closed the door and never saw him again. He probably thinks I ghosted him, but I know all I did was accept his terms. We were just two people who saw each other when they felt like it. It just so happened that after he blew up at me about the whole thing, I didn't really feel like seeing him. He did end up messaging and calling me a few times since then, asking to hang out. I answer, but I'll never see him. I don't feel like it. Pizza shop owner told me not to show up after 10:15, so I didn't. This story took place a few years ago, but I just remembered it after passing by the shopping center the pizza place used to be in. Background information. At the time, I was working for a window cleaning company and was paid commission. I got paid a fraction of whatever I cleaned. At the beginning of the day, we would be given a list of jobs in an area and drive around until everything was done. Usually the routes were somewhat random, meaning it was rare to get the same route twice in a row. Most routes had a large number of restaurants that had to be done before they opened, so usually we would have to plan out when to get to a job based on what time they arrived, so we wouldn't have to backtrack. The route in question will be called Springfield, but this route also had two small pizza places in the next town over, Shelbyville, that were always included because the company did not have any other jobs in that area, and Springfield was the closest town. Both of these jobs didn't usually show up until around 10:15 to 10:30, so I would often have to save them until all my other restaurants were done before making the 15-minute drive over. There also wasn't enough work on this route to justify sending two people, so whoever had it was by themselves. To the actual story. So one morning I'm driving out to Shelbyville and stop at the first job at around 10:20. This job is cheap, consisting of about one big window and a door. However, the lights were completely off and no one replied when I knocked, so I left to do the other job in the area before returning at around 10:40 to see someone inside. At that point, I get my stuff out and start cleaning the outside, only for the owner to see me and come storming to the door. In a very angry voice, he asks me what I thought I was doing. When I explain that I was cleaning the windows, as if it wasn't already apparent, he yells at me that I should have been there earlier, to which I told him what time I was originally there, that the lights were out and no one answered when I knocked. The owner assured me he was there, but that he just likes to sit in the back office with all the lights out, and next time I should knock harder. Lastly, before I left, after he refused to pay for the outside I had already done, he yelled that, "If you can't be here before 10:30, don't even bother coming at all." The malicious compliance. It was around this time that back in Springfield, my boss had picked up another restaurant that was about 10 times more expensive, but had the same issue of people not showing up until around 9:45 to 10 to allow me to clean the inside. This meant that every time I had this route, I had to pick between a job that cost $10 or a job that cost $100. I picked the more expensive one. Because this new place was so much bigger, even if I did the outside before they got there, it would still take me at least 20 to 30 minutes to finish the inside. Because of this, I wouldn't even start driving out to Shelbyville until almost 10:30. As a result, I took what the owner said to heart and stopped showing up. Also, because of some weird twist of fate, I ended up getting this route multiple times in a row, so this guy hadn't been clean for 6 months straight before someone else eventually had to do it. It became even funnier for me as during those 6 months, we picked up a dry cleaner right next door to him that I would clean while staying just out of sight of the pizza place. It also somehow slipped past my bosses that I hadn't been doing this one job as it never came up. When my coworker went to go clean it, the owner apparently thought we had gone out of business or something as he hadn't seen us in so long. Shortly after, he canceled service altogether, then went out of business maybe another 2 months after that. My boyfriend wants his name on the mortgage even though he's not contributing towards the down payment. Little background. I just moved back home from a large city to a smaller city, closer to family for a better job. My boyfriend is currently in the larger city where we rent a townhome while he's trying to find a job so he can follow me. I'm currently looking to purchase a home in this terrible buyer's market. My dad is insistent on buying so I don't keep wasting money on renting, but the market is really bad here. I found a house that I'm obsessed with, outside of my budget, but my dad is offering to help me with the down payment significantly, allowing me to just repay him over time. My boyfriend won't be putting any money down on a payment. My boyfriend said that if his name isn't on the mortgage, then he refuses to pay me rent when he moves in with me. He also thinks that I shouldn't buy a house right now since the market is so terrible, and he doesn't know if we'll like the area yet, since I only grew up here and haven't lived here since I was a kid. I feel like he's being really controlling over the issue, but I'm trying to see it from his side as well. He's getting his grandmother's ring reset to propose, and he's really making the effort to move down here. I know he feels left out in the process, but I guess I just don't understand why he can't wait to be put on the mortgage until we're married. Edit. Thank you for all the responses, and honestly, thank you for the law, mortgage, deed help, and clarification. This is my first home, and it's a lot to take in and a lot to learn. Also, not going to commit fraud. Repay over time. He quite literally said, maybe pay him back after the house was fully paid off, and if I sold it while he was still alive. It's truly a generous gift. I think I said repay over time because it's a generous gift and I feel unworthy to accept, but that's a personal issue and we could be here all day. Everyone sucks here. Here's what your boyfriend's post might look like. I'm in a serious relationship with my girlfriend and I'm about to propose. She wants to move to a smaller city that she grew up in. I'm not excited about the idea because we've never lived there and I'm afraid it won't be a good fit for us, but I'm willing to move there because it's important to her. I'd like to rent there for a bit before buying to see if we like living there and which neighborhoods we like. But because her dad is insisting she buy a place, she's gone ahead and found a house she wants to buy there, and her dad is paying the down payment. She wants me to move there with her and pay half of the mortgage for a house I'll get no equity in, that I didn't help choose, in a city where I don't even have a job yet. I don't understand why she's making these decisions with her dad and not with her life partner. She's accusing me of being controlling when she's the one who's making all the decisions without my input. I feel like I've already sacrificed a lot by being willing to move to her hometown with her, and now I'm being steamrolled. Am I the jerk if I tell her I won't pay the mortgage with her unless my name is on the deed? Exactly. Plus, I'm worried I won't have any rights living in her home, and she could just kick me out one day. Also, owning a home is a lot more work. I've enjoyed being a renter and not having to do yard work, worry about repairs and such. She's really excited about a home we really can't afford, but won't talk to me about the details of how our living together and me renting from her will work. I'm beginning to wonder if this is the right move for me. Would I be the jerk if I told her I'd prefer to do long distance for a while or rent separately when I first move? Exactly. I feel so sorry for this dude now with everyone saying he's an ungrateful, controlling freak who wants to steal her money, that he should just pay the rent or be dumped. He just wanted to make his life with his girlfriend, find a new place, propose to her. I'm sure if the situation would have been reversed, him buying the house, everyone would have called him the jerk. Everyone sucks here. You for buying a house like you're single. He's going to live there. You obviously plan on marrying him. Does he not get a say in where he lives? What if he hates the house? He's not even sure he wants to live in that city permanently. But who cares what he wants? Let's listen to Daddy and take his money for a house that you can't even afford. And Daddy is the jerk too, for basically forcing your hand to buy in that city instead of giving it time and seeing if that is where you really want to live or see if you and your boyfriend would be happy there. As for the boyfriend, he is giving ultimatums and not contributing financially to the down payment. I see why you don't want to put his name on the house, but again, if you plan on marrying him and paying the mortgage together, why not wait and buy a house together? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. If you are going to get married, I'd probably wait on buying a house for now. My brother's girlfriend sent me a list of chores I need to do before my Easter celebration. I'm male, 31. My brother Tom, who's 28, has a girlfriend named Harper, who's 25. They've dated for 4 years. They aren't married, they never want to, but Harper calls herself a sister-in-law. They have no kids and Harper doesn't work. This would be fine if they didn't struggle financially. They had to move in with my parents because of debt. My family thinks Harper is lazy and she compensates by being a perfect housewife. Harper puts all of her free time into party planning, as in planning our family's birthdays and holidays, which we never asked for and don't like. She treats every event like it's a wedding and she the wedding planner. For context, she makes spreadsheets of all the things to do weeks in advance. These people are in charge of the food. This many people, this budget, these options, up for debate later. These people do decorations, cleaning up before and after, color scheme and attire suggestions. These people do entertainment, karaoke, games, music, playlists, movies, slideshows. My family collectively rolls our eyes and says things like, Harper, it's a birthday for a 1-year-old. My 1-year-old. There will be 10 people there, so buzz off with this list. Harper pouts and is moody at the events because, if only we did it this way, it would have been so much more special and memorable. I'm hosting Easter at my house because I have a large yard for the kids to hunt eggs. As usual, Harper sent the family spreadsheets for the event. Apparently, my job as host is to properly clean my house, weed and mulch my flower beds, and remove a dead tree on the edge of the property. There was a tips and tricks for lawn care she added at the bottom. Harper has decided to cook the food. Her budget is $120, $155 if I want a cake. I emailed her back and simply said, "Who invited you?" She sent me a bunch of question marks. I texted back, "Unfortunately, there will be no +1s to watch my kids find eggs in the yard. If I let my brother bring a date, then I'd have to let my other guests bring dates, and we have already hit our budget of buying a grocery store ham. Sorry, I'm sure you understand how things are. Best wishes." She stopped talking to me. My brother is mad at me. My dad thinks I'm petty. My sisters couldn't care less, and my mom is happy though. She hates Harper. My wife wants me to act my age and stop this drama, but because it's my family, she's leaving it as my decision. Am I the jerk for banning Harper? Edit. Harper started making the spreadsheets when she and my brother moved in with my parents. We told her thanks but no. Every get-together, she wanted to add a few $100s to it of our money. We firmly said no, and she continues to give us passive-aggressive comments about not making our family moment special. I don't consider her family. No one does, not even my brother. He doesn't want to marry her because this is just another girlfriend to him. Their relationship is toxic. I didn't mention it because that's not the problem right now. I'm rude to her, I admit it. Last edit. Wow, a lot of comments. Thanks for the responses. I'm glad to know many feel my response was justified, but will also consider the advice from those that feel I should be the better person. To answer the many asking about my brother, their relationship, and my parents' place in it, my brother is a jerk. I know it, my family knows it. He has strung Harper along for years, and we assumed they would break up long before now. Harper treats him like a king, does everything for him, so that's why he's still with her, but has told us she's just another girlfriend. My dad spoils my brother and pressured my mom to take her in along with my brother. My mom hates Harper. My other two siblings, sisters, are low contact, and I am low contact as well. When Harper moved in with my parents, she really pushed for a family connection, correcting us to call her a sister-in-law, not a girlfriend, being a part of all family events, controlling them really. We've shut her down every time, but she pretends like it's never an issue, so we ignore her now. Entitled Mom tries to set her daughter up with my uncle, whilst my cousin is on the ground, in pain. Cast. We've got me, irrelevant, my name's Benjamin if it helps. We've got Sarah, my cousin. We've got Uncle Sam, my uncle. We've got the embarrassed girl, you'll see why. And we've got Entitled Mother, who should probably take a parenting class. It was the summer break. Like I said, I was 13 at the time, and parents were off in Canada visiting some relatives of my mother, leaving me with aunt and uncle for the week. Yay. We were at the park. I was watching Sarah, who was 10 at the time, while she played with the other kids to make sure she didn't get into any trouble or whatever. My uncle was watching from a nearby bench. All of a sudden, this girl, who looked to be about 18, walked up to my uncle. This part is paraphrased dialogue, of course, since I was too busy watching Sarah at the time. Embarrassed girl. "Hey there, good looking." Uncle Sam. "Oh, hello. Can I help you?" Embarrassed girl. Prepare to cringe. "Just wondering, what's a hunk like you doing in a dump like this?" Wait, if it's a dump, why was she there? Strange, no? Uncle Sam. "Well, Embarrassed girl. "Oh, never mind. Would you like to go get a coffee with me or something?" Uncle Sam. Sorry, but how old are you exactly?" Unfortunately, the girl perceived that question as him being interested in her, which was the furthest thing from the truth. "Oh, you do want to go out with me, don't you? Not a surprise considering how hot I am." Please, someone send the cringe police. I'm dying just writing this. Uncle Sam. No, I'm married. I'm just asking because you don't look older than 18. The embarrassed girl, from what my uncle told me, looked embarrassed and red in the face when my uncle mentioned that he was married. She then mumbled that she was, in fact, 18 years old. I think it's worth noting that my uncle is the same age as my aunt, which at this point in time would have been 35. Uncle Sam informed her as much, and the girl looked even more embarrassed. She mumbled some awkward apology and walked away. 5 minutes later, entitled mom appears, with embarrassed girl apparently telling her to stop in the background. Entitled mom. Excuse me? Uncle Sam. Yes, can I help you? He's a polite dude. Are you the man my daughter talked to earlier? Uncle Sam, awkward laugh. Yeah, I am. So, what's wrong with her? I'm sorry? You heard me. Why won't you go out with her? Uncle Sam. Oh, well, I'm married. Not to mention, she's kind of younger than me. Entitled mom lets out that classic Karen scoff. Oh, come on. You're only 20. You're not that much older than her. I'm 35, actually. Oh, shut it, kid. You can't be older than 23. You just want an excuse not to date my daughter. Now, I will say that my uncle does look slightly younger than he is, but if you looked at his face at the time, the youngest you could think he was 30. How this woman thought my uncle was 15 years younger than he actually was is beyond my understanding. Uncle Sam. Lady, I don't really care what you think. I'm 35, and whether you believe me or not, that's an undeniable fact. And even if I was 20, I don't have any obligation to date your daughter. Don't be selfish. She's recently had a breakup, and it's been really hard on her. You don't want to break the heart of a girl who's going through a tough time. I'm sorry to hear that. But again, I'm 35 and married. So what? Age is just a number. What matters is that you love the one you're with. Embarrassed girl. Mom, stop. Uncle Sam. Lady, you shouldn't be encouraging this kind of stuff to happen. Are you insulting my parenting? No. At that point, I came running towards Uncle Sam because whilst he was having that conversation with entitled mom, my cousin ended up twisting her ankle while playing, which caused her to scream in pain. I'm a fool. I have failed my duty. So I immediately panicked and ran off to get my Uncle Sam. I told him what happened, and he went with me to Sarah, who was on the floor with the other adults trying to help and calm her down, crying in pain. My uncle went into Papa Bear mode and motioned to help my cousin, but entitled mom had other plans in mind and followed him. She said this. Hey, don't ignore me. I was talking to you. What's wrong with my daughter? Why is she not... Now, my Uncle Sam is not normally a confrontational person, but the fact that this lady was still trying to set him up with her daughter, despite my cousin was on the floor in obvious pain, really set him off. He interrupted her, shouting, Lady, shut up. The entitled mom stopped the minute my uncle shouted, Uncle Sam, you can clearly see my daughter is on the floor in pain, yet the only thing you can think about is getting a date for yours. Buzz off now and let me help my kid. The entitled mom was shocked by Uncle's shouting and looked like she was about to say something else, but after seeing that people were shooting her some dirty looks, she just took her embarrassed daughter and left. After that, we took my cousin home and treated her twisted ankle the best we could. My uncle hadn't seen the lady ever since then, but honestly, I'm kind of wondering what was going through her brain. Like, why was she looking for dates for her daughter in the park? Did she honestly think that their age difference was fine? On the subject of age, did she actually believe my uncle was 15 years younger than he actually was? Or was she just looking for an excuse for him to date her, considering she switched gears and tried to pull the age is just a number card? This lady was so weird, I wouldn't be surprised if she was responsible for the pickup lines that her daughter tried to use. I also wouldn't be surprised if the whole breakup story was just to guilt trip my uncle. But, I don't know anything about their lives, so it could be true. Well, I hope you liked this one, I guess. If you want to make it a whole thing, go ahead and call the cops. My usually not irresponsible teenager lost his phone and just realized it while competing in a district track meet he was invited to. This fueled my urgency to find his phone more than its value or anything else. I had my daughter use her Find My Phone app to see it at a local convenience store. I refreshed the search to see that it was hovering around the space of the store in the parking lot, almost back and forth between two locations. I tell my daughter I'm taking her phone with me to the store to retrieve it in between my son's events, 100-meter discus and shot put. I arrive through the doors, a la Kramer from Seinfeld, phone up and in hand like I'm on a timed scavenger hunt. The clerk gets suddenly shifty, looking at me, then looking away and looking at his customer. Understandable with how I entered. I jumped in line, patiently waiting for the customer in front of me to interview the clerk about the state lottery system, A barrage of ridiculous questions that even I couldn't write up. Finally, it's my turn, and now I'm the only customer in here. I also noticed that upon refreshing the app I was using, it hasn't moved since I entered the store. I begin with what would be a line of my own questions. Hey, my son lost his iPhone, and this app says it's near here. Has anyone turned in a phone? Lying clerk says, nope. I retort, could you look around and see? Because I've refreshed this over the past 20 minutes, and it's here. Liar McLiarstein continues his poorly spun web of lies. I don't know anything about it, man, so quit bothering me. You lost your phone, get over it. Dude, it's here. Where's my phone? If you want to make it a whole thing, go ahead and call the cops. See what they do. Oh, let's do that. Now I know that I can ping the phone to make noise, but I don't know if he's got it in his car, in the back room locked up, or somewhere I can't get to without being arrested, like behind his counter. I call the cops and explain the situation as well as my suspicions. The police ask what app I used, if it's active, if I have any more evidence that it's in his possession. I explained that I didn't want to ping it yet until they could help. They agreed to send a car out. I wait outside at the next door, Dutch Bros, out of his line of sight, hoping he was convinced I left. The police arrive and I flag them to me, showing him the app. They also took my ID, which was weird, but whatever. We end up entering the store together as I ping the phone. Beep, beep. It's back in his office. He answers questions as he gets handcuffed. I get the phone back to the track meet just in time to miss him getting his second hibiscus. Edit. To those who keep hemming and hawing over my not pressing charges, know that this isn't even the first time or the worst time I didn't press charges on a convenience store employee. I wish I was better at tagging my content. Anyway, to those who chide me for not pressing charges, for not believing in second chances, may you get 3 of your toes stuck in the hole of your ripped jeans every time you try to put them on. Am I the jerk for treating my daughter-in-law like a kid when she was acting like one? My son and his wife have been staying with us for about a month now while they prepare to move into a new place in May. My wife and I enjoy having them with us, and for the most part, my daughter-in-law is lovely, but she is very messy. I'm retired from the Army, and I've always run my house to a certain set of standards, and I expect them to be followed even by guests. My son has often described his wife as someone who prefers clutter, and she generally likes to have things where she can see them. But after I voiced my displeasure over the clutter in the guest bedroom they are presiding in, as well as in the guest bath they use every day, she did begin to decrease this amount of clutter, but not to the standards I would like in my home. My daughter-in-law still leaves her makeup out in the bathroom until she gets home in afternoons because she runs out of time in the mornings to put them up. To her credit, she does clean everything when she gets home, but I don't appreciate having to stare at the mess for hours until she does get home. I tried handling privately with my son in hopes he could talk to her, and while he did agree, he mostly made excuses about her behavior, equating it to a unstable home life growing up with incompetent parents and in the foster system towards her later teen years. I admit she still is quite young at 20, but my kids knew how to clean up after themselves before they were out of elementary school. My frustrations over the situation grew to a head one day, where yet again she left out makeup in the bathroom, and in response I took a trash bag and placed all the makeup and everything underneath the sink that was hers as well, and then in the guest bedroom, every piece of clothing she owned, etc. I had no intention of actually throwing her belongings in the trash, but I wanted to show how serious I was on the matter, and I thought maybe handling it how I would have handled a teenager would have given her a bit of a wake-up call, since she seemed to have missed out on it in her childhood. My daughter-in-law came home before my son, and when she discovered her things in trash bags outside of the front door, I could tell she was rather shell-shocked. I didn't yell, but I was stern when I explained that her behavior had been very disrespectful, and if it continued, she would have to leave my house. My daughter-in-law didn't say much and just looked at me with wide eyes the whole time. And then when I was done, she apologized and took all of her things back inside the room she was staying in. I could hear her crying, which seemed to me to be dramatic, and when my son got home, he apologized for daughter-in-law's messiness, but said that the way I handled the situation was too far. I told him it was my house, my rules. Now my daughter-in-law has been keeping all of her things in her car and won't even place them in the house at all. She has also become very reserved when I'm around, but is completely fine around my daughters and wife. The mess stopped, but now there is an awkwardness in the house. You're the jerk. 1. You gave them the guest room and guest bathroom for their use. As long as they don't destroy anything, they should be entitled to use it how they see fit. You repeatedly said she does clean up, so she's not trashing your house. 2. While they are staying with you, the space you gave them is their space. They should be entitled to a sense of security and privacy. Creeping into their room to see if she's living up to your ex-military standards is not acceptable. 3. You knew she was in the foster system, which means that she likely did not have strong parental figures to teach her, though it is very clear she is trying to please you. 4. Foster care kids often have to put their belongings in trash bags to go from house to house. They often bounce around the system. It creates a lifetime of problems. You literally made her possibly relive the experiences of coming home to find all her belongings in trash bags. Being told it isn't her home anymore, no wonder she was crying. The fact that she has not argued with you about any of your absolutely ridiculous rules means she's either scared of you or of losing another home, or she's trying very hard to please you, but it's extremely difficult for her. And by the way, hot take here. Have you considered that your control issues, which you blame on being ex-military, are actually responses to having these behaviors grilled into you by said military? This isn't healthy. You need therapy. To add to your last paragraph, I've heard of kids going no contact with parents like this because the expectations are not reasonable for most kids and some young adults, especially if there's any depression or ADHD involved. The no exceptions, no excuses attitude rarely leads to close or meaningful relationships. OP, as someone who had a loving military dad, there is a difference between firm and obsessive. There's also a difference between reasonable and unreasonable expectations. They are adults that were given a separate space temporarily, a space you don't need to look at but choose to, especially their bedroom. Just stay out. Unless you are concerned about mold, dishes, or food, it doesn't actually affect you, and your repeated comment about it being disrespectful isn't true. Leaving clothes on the floor is not the same as breaking things. However, you're the jerk because you are handling her personal items. Even the ones put away is massively disrespectful. Imagine some guy going through your wife's stuff and all of her personal belongings and putting them in a bag for no reason other than to be a jerk to her. I love this because as someone with ADHD, things like running out of time do in fact exist. That would make me upset as it is, let alone any past issues this woman has felt. I could definitely see her struggling to be comfortable with this man again. He treated her worse than like a child. He treated her like she was disposable for not following his rules. Well, what do you think? Did OP take it too far or not? Please let us know. Why on earth should you have to keep the guest bedroom that you're staying in tidy? God, I love the people on Reddit. Our landlord told me, go ahead, call the city inspector. So I did. This happened in 2018. I just moved to a new apartment. It was a 3-bedroom, first-floor apartment, and it had a finished basement. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen on the first floor. It also had a bedroom with a full bath in the basement and a bar and gaming area. It was also in a very nice area of the city. The apartment was owned by a corporation. Honestly, we loved that apartment until it kept having recurring issues in the basement. The carpet was wet from time to time. At first, the landlord would send a cleaner to come and handle it, but it kept happening. I asked them to check and fix the issue. They did not do it. I told them I'll call the city inspector to check the building. They laughed at me and told me, go ahead, call the city inspector. So I did. I called the city twice until I finally was connected to the right department, and they sent an inspector a week later. The inspector found so many building violations. They told me they'd contact the building owner and would come again. The next day, the owner called and begged me to tell them what I know about the problem with the apartment. I told them that I sent complaints multiple times. They should check their record. The city inspector, the owner, and the property manager came 2 weeks after that. The city inspector was letting them have it. He laid it to them and it was bad. They have to deal with structural and foundational issues and some safety issues too. There were 4 tenants in that building, including us. Imagine it was a big colonial, multi-family home divided into 4 apartments. They had to break the lease with all of us to fix the building. They couldn't fix it with us being there. We were ready and already consulted a lawyer. We told them that 1, we want our deposit back before moving out. 2, they paid for all of our moving expenses. 3, they paid for our deposits at the next place. They could not kick us out. They could not rent the apartment after the inspections. There were 4 of us, and we could all sue them for placing us in a dangerous building. In the end, they spent so much money to relocate us and fix the apartment. Don't feel the need to promote one of us because we have things taken care of? Fine, we'll stick to just doing our job. To provide a bit of the backstory, This happened about 4 years ago. Myself and my coworkers, 2 others, were delivery drivers for a large food service company. The lead driver at the time was let go, leaving just myself and my coworkers. Naturally, about a week after he was let go, we started asking our managers when they would be opening up the lead driver position for applications. Their response was simple and expected. Not right now. We have a lot going on as we're moving into the busy season and we still need to clean out former employees' crap. Not a big deal. There was a lot of BS to clean up after the former lead was let go. He had been stealing from the company, totals were missing, truck was thrashed, and he had been using the truck storage facility as his own personal storage unit. We had a lot to deal with. As for the 2 of us working there, I had about 3 years on the job experience and my coworker had almost 5 in the role. As far as I was concerned, he should be the one getting the promotion. Longer tenure, wife and kids, just me and my cat at the time, and the promotion was an additional $1.50 per hour. No brainer on my end, but him and I both had a feeling they'd want to put me in that position since the big boss butted heads with him a long time ago and they didn't see eye to eye, and I tended to be a bit better with inner office politics. Well, about 3 months after the lead was let go, things settled down and we brought up the issue again. When will the lead position be posted? $1.50 an hour adds up fast, and on a flat 40-hour work week, 4 10-hour days classified into a 5 to 8 hour work week meant at least $132 per paycheck, and more depending on the overtime. And we almost always had 10 to 20 hours of overtime a check. Do the math. When asked again about the position, we were told the same. We're working on it, just be patient. As soon as we can, we'll open it up and we'll make one of you the lead. Well, this irritated both of us, but irritated my coworker even more than me because he felt like that position should have already been his. He'd been doing the routing for the day off the clock, only a 10-minute phone call, handling mechanic appointments as we were a satellite operation 4 hours from the DC, communicating with warehouse staff, operation management, etc. I offered to reach out to management, put in my 2 cents and spur things along. He declined my help as he didn't want to butt heads with the big boss again and possibly risk his job. No problem. So we continued to wait. After 8 months, my coworker was getting quite fed up. Typically, he only talked about something bothering him when he was really ticked off, and he had been talking about this almost every week for a month. So he called up the manager again and asked when they were going to open up the position for applications. The response, "You two been doing a great job down there. Everything's being handled, so we don't feel the need to create a new position." Oh yeah? This ticked us off big time. This was not creating a position. That lead position had been there for years before he was let go. I once again offered my assistance and opinions on how to speed things along and was declined again. That was until he called me 2 days later after stewing on it and told me to do what I want. So I did. The next morning, before unloading the trucks, we sat in the office, drank some coffee, and I told him what we were going to do. We were going to do nothing. We were going to field every single phone call, questions, concerns, issue, and pass it on to the big boss. He doesn't think we need a lead, so we'll just be drivers. So without providing any notice to the manager or the sales reps, here's a few examples, but you'll get the point. Routing? Call big boss. Issue with delivery? Tell the customer to call the sales rep so they can call big boss and he can call us to go ahead and fix it, something we normally would just do. Head mechanic calls us to say we need to schedule a DOT or service? Nope, call the big boss, tell him he needs to call the local mechanic or schedule it yourself. We passed every single phone call and issue off to him. For us, it wasn't a big deal since we could just handle things then and there. A simple go back and pick something up would take 2 minutes. Customer texts us directly, we do it. But we're just drivers, so we ignored the customer, responded back that we couldn't do that anymore and that they would need to call their sales rep. This made it a 15-minute task at the minimum, but was usually around an hour or 2 before we could get back to the customer. The fallout? We didn't even make it through the first morning before crap hit the fan. As soon as the first issue popped up, our sales rep called me asking why the customer said I couldn't do something. I told her the story and she was ticked. Not at us, but at the big boss. I apologized, reassured her it's not personal, but if they won't pay my coworker to do the job, then we will just do what we are paid to do. My sales rep said she will get this taken care of, but she refuses to work with big boss. She'll quit before that happens. Serious threat from someone with 25 years on the job. Couple hours later, my coworker and I got a call from big boss. He apologized, told us he was wrong, and that he would open up the position for us to apply and asked that we go back to what we were doing. We told him no. Until that position is posted, applicant selected, and one of our pay stubs shows the increase in pay, he can continue to handle the phone calls, but thanked him for the apology. We carried on our merry way, and the next day Big Boss called us, told us the position was listed, asked us each to write up a letter of intent for why we felt like we deserved the position, and they would consider our letters and select one of us. Fantastic progress. My coworker pretty much wrote down on his letter that he had been doing that work for 8 months. He has the seniority, contact information, and knowledge, so he felt he should be considered. I submitted nothing, told my coworker he should have been promoted 8 months ago, and sealed the envelope. I, of course, get a phone call the next day from the big boss asking me why I didn't submit my letter, and I told him just that. You should have promoted my coworker 8 months ago, and I don't want the position. Took a few days, but arms were twisted, and my coworker got his well-deserved promotion. The real push was the sales rep. We found out a couple months after she had called her vice president, told him this was bogus, and refused to have to work with Big Boss since she couldn't stand him. Well, the vice president of sales got together with the vice president of operations and made the magic happen. Coworker thanked me for the help, bought me a couple T-bone steaks, and said he never wants to get on my bad side.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.